You're listening to The Grip, where we take hold of mindset and martial arts. Now, let's get started. Today's guest is the definition of consistency, grit, and growth. A true workhorse, both on and off the mats. He's a blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu with over 5 years of mixed martial arts experience, holding a 7-5 amateur record before making his pro debut in 2025. Now sitting at 2-1 as a professional fighter, he continues to level up every time he steps into the cage. But here's the thing. This man doesn't just show up in the cage, he shows up in life. He's got a bachelor's in business administration and finance. He's a husband, and he's a proud father of 2 beautiful girls. Proving you can chase your dreams while holding it down at home. This man is one of the most dedicated athletes out there, and an example of hard work and heart. It's truly an honor to welcome to the show, Rod Moore.
Wow, nice introduction. It's different when you hear it from somebody else, for sure.
Yeah, well,
I appreciate that.
Absolutely. I'm excited to have you on, Rod. For those listening that don't know, Rod, I guess we kind of go back, not way back, but we met in Lubbock.
Yeah.
And both at the beginning of our martial arts journey. We'll get into it like down the road once we get into the details of you merging it into martial arts. But that kind of gives our listeners an idea. As we met in Lubbock, you're a true Lubbockite. Lubbock native, don't know the term, but let's kind of just start from there, where your early roots were. So share a little bit about what it was like growing up in Lubbock, Texas, and what you were exposed to as a kid.
Yeah, so initially born in Lubbock, but I always put this asterisk in there. Though I was born in Lubbock, I didn't necessarily grow up in Lubbock. I grew up in a little, even smaller town outside of Lubbock named Smyre. And so we got 5 acres out there. And that was initially my grandparents' property. And my parents had a trailer on that property, and that's where I grew up. And so from basically birth to 16, I grew up out there. And I just went to school in Lubbock. But my home life was, I grew up on a dirt road. So I didn't grow up in Lubbock, Texas. And so, from Lubbock, but not from Lubbock.
Okay. And so you grew up on 5 acres, and you have how many brothers, Rod?
I have 2 older brothers. Me and my second oldest brother are 12 years apart, and then my oldest brother, I believe, we're 16 years apart.
Okay.
So, nice little gap.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So what was it like growing up for you? What were kind of some of the things that you were into?
Well, growing up, like I said, having 2 older brothers who were reasonably significantly older, and being in the country, I didn't really grow up around a lot of kids. I grew up around, people older than me. I had one other friend that was my age that lived out there in that area with me. But other than that, like, he was the only other actual kid, quote unquote, I was around, unless I had cousins or somebody like that come over. But I grew up with a lot of alone time, if that makes sense. Not that like I was left alone, but just being in the country, you don't have as much of that interactive, go outside and play with the neighborhood kids type of thing.
Had to entertain yourself a little.
Yeah. So, like any other kid, you watch TV, you play video games, do all of that stuff. But at the same time, like, my parents were what would be considered old school. You was only going to be inside so long before it's like, go do something. And then at the same time, it was 5 acres. So, and my dad is the dad that it's always something to be done. So there's always work to do. So if you hear kids nowadays a lot, I'm bored. That would never come out my mouth as a kid. It's like, you
They'll
saying
find
you
you
were bored.
something to do.
You saying you're bored is you saying, oh, you want me to find you something to do. And so, most of the time I never had the opportunity to be bored. It was always something for me to do, something for me to work on, somewhere for me to be. And so, as a kid, extremely active. Football was like the family staple, family sport. My dad played, my brothers played. That's what I grew up playing. I started playing organized football at 10. But even before that, I can remember interacting with football as long as I could walk. You know what I mean? Like that was just what we did. And so
Hmm.
even to my mom, like my mom would throw me routes in the yard and just do football related stuff with me. And that was just kind of the family thing, getting up into, like I said, from 10 to middle school to high school to college. That was life.
Yeah.
And so,
And can you tell me, Rod, because you dance. So
yeah.
how did dancing kind of come into your life, and what style were you into initially and as that grew?
So just to give context and timeline, I started playing organized football at 10. 10 years old is also when I started like really taking dance serious. Prior to that, I would just dance at like family events and weddings and whatever. And it was just me being me personality wise.
Yeah.
But at 10 years old, like I said, the property we lived on was initially my grandparents' property. My grandfather at 10 passed. And so dance it went from something I just did personality wise to an outlet.
Mm.
And like I said, to give context and timeline at that particular time, crumping was a big thing. It's a hip hop, a style of dance. And so I started initially with that. And there's this real popular movie at that time called Rise that was out. And that was like my introduction to that style and that form. And it just kind of went from there. But, at that time, we still on dial-up internet. So I'm in the room on the big desktop computer that's this big with dial-up internet taking 2 to 3 hours to watch a 3-minute video. But in me doing that, that gave me time to, really dive into specific moves, specific things of that nature and really, really learn because I had
Yeah.
so much time. I'm in the country. I'm by myself. So I had time to do these type of things. So yeah, I started initially dancing at 10. From there, once I got to middle school, I started doing my school talent shows. I did that 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And then by high school, I was kind of like established as like, oh yeah, he dances.
Yeah.
If I was ever anywhere and music was playing, somebody was calling me to dance.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of how that started, and eventually it developed into me being on travel teams and taking that a little more in depth and a step further. Yeah, no, it was something that up front just started as an outlet in me dealing with my grandfather passing and just kind of having a way to express myself.
Yeah, for sure. You said travel teams, and so when you would you go to these competitions and compete like within a choreographed group or independently?
Hmm. Yeah, so my sophomore year of high school, I was doing my school talent shows. And after my talent show, my sophomore year, I got approached by one of the cheerleaders at my school who was on a team. She did cheer privately, but that private cheer team had a dance team as well, like a hip
Mhm.
hop dance team that was co-ed, male and female. And so they asked me and one other guy that I used to do the talent shows with to join. And like I said, this is private, so this is similar in the same realm or setup of kind of like a gymnastics gym. So this isn't free. Like this is expensive.
Mhm.
So I was kind of brought in on more of like a scholarship type tip. I still had to pay, but I didn't have to pay as much as, everybody else that was in the program, and started doing group stuff, group choreography and all that. Wasn't my first time doing it in that setting. Like me and some of the other people that I danced with in talent shows, we would do that and set up our own stuff. And so wasn't new to that, but I was new to like just being, because I want to say we had at least 15 to 20 to 25 people on that team. So it was a bigger group of people to have to all get on the same page. And that
Yeah.
was different.
Yeah.
Yeah, started that my sophomore year and traveled. I did that sophomore and junior year. And so we went to San Antonio. We came to Dallas a few times. And we had a bid for Worlds in Florida, but didn't end up going. I can't remember the exact reason. But Yeah, overall,
That's very cool.
I think I traveled to probably at least 4 to 5 different competitions
Yeah.
between Dallas and San Antonio.
And that's cool, Rod, that you were, I mean, it initially started off as something that was kind of a hobby, self-taught.
Hmm.
And I feel like your story for what drew you into dance is a little bit different as far as it was more of self expression, maybe an emotional
Hmm.
release, where I think others maybe get into dance because of the music, because of the movement, the performance,
Yeah.
and maybe eventually that merged into that. But
Hmm.
it's cool to see that. And I feel like as an outsider looking in, those two worlds seem like a very clear correlation between music and dance and then fighting and martial arts, because it is a level of there's music and this energy, and then
Hmm.
there's obviously the movement side of things, which is super intense. And then
Yeah,
we all know now as it's growing, it is truly there's a whole performance side of things as far as how you're
absolutely.
approaching yourself before the fights, during the fight, and how you're ultimately finishing the fights too. So I can kind of see this easy transition for you. It started from way back when.
Yeah, and like you said, definitely a lot of similarities in just the timing, having rhythm, having back and forth, having to feed off of somebody else's energy. A lot of that plays a part. And then just the fluidity of motion and being, as the Bruce Lee saying goes, being like water. You know, you have to be able to flow and in and out of movements and have synchronicity within your body to be able to execute at a high level. And so, yeah, it's crazy. A lot of the same motions, the same practices, the same warm ups apply now that I'm on the martial arts side of things that applied back then, doing something in a completely different direction. But yeah, no, it's crazy how lined up it was, and yeah, it wasn't a difficult transition moving forward coming into martial arts.
Right. And so you've got this background in dance, you've got this background in football, many years of football. Did you ever have like an awkward or self-conscious stage, or have you always just kind of been this freak of nature that it's like if you're going in, just it's been easy for you? Or
On the self-conscious side or just the mental side of it, I guess I would say, like, from a performance aspect, I've always been just kind of a natural entertainer. Cause like I said, like I can remember dancing at like family functions and just different stuff at like 3, 4, 5 years old. You know what I mean? So that was just always my personality.
mm-hmm.
And it's funny because people who know me now or like have met me now or know me past high school, when I say I dance, they're like, "You danced?" And I'm like, "Yeah." Like pretty significantly actually. And so my personality, I guess, over time, because of just to answer your question on the self-conscious side, I got to spend a lot of time alone as a
Mm-hmm.
kid, and I feel like there's value in that, in being able to spend time alone. You really get to know like who you are, who you're not. And I got that at a young age. I understood that at a young age. And so me being able to be alone a lot in combination with me when I did spend time with people that were typically older people, I got that understanding of who I was at an early age and who I wasn't at an early age. And so the things that I did by choice, I did confidently because
Mm-hmm.
that's what I did. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
they were all things that I spent individual behind the scenes time working on. So it's
Yeah.
like when I went to dance in the talent shows, when I went to play football, when I went to do whatever it was I was doing in a performance setting, that wasn't my first time doing it. Like I've done this behind the scenes for hours by myself. So now it's just y'all's first time seeing it. But
Yeah.
I do this every day. And
Yeah.
so when dealing with confidence, when dealing with, just being in front of other people, I feel like that played a big part in. And don't get me wrong, you have the nerves and the anticipation leading up to it. But that was just something I feel like I had early. Not only did I not, I think it was more just me not caring like
Mm-hmm.
what other people thought. Like that was
Right.
I always had that that factor in my character and my personality. Like I've never really been one to care about how I was perceived or
Mm-hmm.
portraying myself a certain way to get looked at a certain way. Like, it was
Yeah.
always just about me organically being me. And however that got across or people felt about it, that's just what it was.
Yeah.
I was fine with however that played out.
Which is huge. I mean, especially growing up, we know that kids can be brutal in
Oh,
terms
yeah.
of bullying and just acceptance, and you're trying to figure things
Mhm.
out, and you just go through so many awkward stages. And so I try to put myself or Gavin, let's say, in your
Yeah.
shoes, Rod. And, as you know, we grew up in a small town in Montana.
Yeah.
And so dance was like not a thing, and
Mhm.
kind of was, but I mean, you were not seeing men out there even in general, which
Yeah.
is a shame. And I'm sure just like a cultural thing. And
Mhm.
if you did meet guys that were comfortable with dancing, it was like Western swing dancing,
Yeah.
and that's about it. And so I don't know what it was like for you in Smire or in the Lubbock area, if that was probably a
No,
little
it
bit better
was
or about the same.
it was a similar dynamic because Lubbock, I mean, you've been in Lubbock, you know how Lubbock is from just a cultural standpoint. I didn't have, up until my sophomore year of high school and joining that team, I didn't have a lot of avenues or like stages to pursue that in. Whereas like if I was somewhere like here in DFW, at that time, at that age doing that, I would have had access to a lot more opportunity to be able to pursue that. And that's partially why I feel like that was just like that window of my life. And I didn't press the issue past a certain age on really like by the time I got to like junior, senior year of high school, that was just kind of something that was like, yeah, I know how to dance. I dance, but I didn't have any like real drive of trying to like, no, like I want to do this. Like, I want to get paid to do this. You know what I mean? Like, I want to do this as a career. And there was a side of me that was like, yeah, that would be nice. But it was just like you said, because of where I was from and the area I was in, I knew like I wasn't going to have the opportunity to do what I needed to do to put myself on the stage and level I needed to put myself on to be able to get into spaces. And because like people who really pursue dance, like you have to be at a Juilliard or, you have to go to schools, and it's similar to being an actor. Like you really got to put yourself in certain spaces around certain people to even be considered in that space. And so I just knew I didn't have access to that. And it was always just something more for me that was just a personality thing and a form of expression because I love music as well. From 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, I was in jazz band too, played the saxophone. And so I was always musically inclined. I was always in that direction as well, as far as just listening to music, playing music. I love music itself. And so, yeah, it was just more of a me thing. Like I didn't do it really for anybody else, but in me getting good at it, it just kind of became something that was like, hey, we want to see type of
Sure.
thing. And
Opened up opportunities.
it went from family to school to eventually me being on travel team and stuff like that. But past that, it was football was also something that was like what I really wanted to do and was really pursuing. So dance kind of took a back seat to that
Sure.
as I
And
got
so
older.
when you describe this level of confidence and self-assurance that you had from an early age, do you think that was all, due to some of those early experiences, just being alone and as you were trying to figure out
No,
yourself? Or do you think some of that was due to your family, or what kind of influenced that growth early?
I think it was the combination of it all. It was the combination of me spending a lot of time alone at a young age, the combination of me being around people that were 10 plus years older than me most of the time. And personality wise, and in those settings at that time, as a kid, when you're around people the majority of the time that are 10 plus years older than you don't say much. And that's why my personality now is the way it is. And people kind of are drawing back when they see other sides and other aspects of me, because it's like, at face value, I'm the quiet guy in the corner. You know what I mean? I'm not loud. I'm not very outspoken or trying to make my presence felt in a room in just spaces. But that I feel like initially comes from me as a kid always being around adults, and a kid around adults, you a kid. Like be quiet. You know what I mean? And so from that, I developed more of a observation personality, and I
Sure.
watch people a lot.
Yeah.
But in me doing that, I learned a lot as
Yeah.
far as just how life works, how things work. I learned a lot about people and why people do things the way they do them. And I feel like that established my personality and understanding of who I am and not being apologetic about it. As far
Uh-huh.
as like, if 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 I take interest in something and I'm pursuing something, I'm not gonna shy away from that or try to present it in a way that it's accepted to those around me. I'm gonna just go balls to the wall at it, and whoever accepts it or approves of it does. Whoever doesn't, that's fine too. You know what I mean? But it was
Yeah.
never. I never did or pursued things for other people's acceptance.
Sure.
It was
Yeah.
always because that was just what was on my heart at the time. But yeah, no, as far as just the confidence aspect, yeah, I kind of feel like it was just the combination of it all.
Yeah. Yeah, and so that obviously built through dance, it built through your
Yeah.
relationships with your family, and then you played football pretty seriously. You said starting at the age of 10, all the way through high school, and then ultimately played in college. Can you explain what position you played
Yeah.
and just what kind of player you were back then?
Yeah, so like I said, that being a family thing, starting with my dad. My dad played, he was a running back and played high school. I mean, played middle school, played high school, played college. He played at Utah for like that was the highest level that he played at. Then to my oldest brother who played out where we lived out in Smyre at a smaller school, he was more of a multi-position. So my
Yep.
brother played out there, and then my second oldest brother, he started out there in Smyre, and then he moved to Estacado on the other side of town where my mom taught at. My oldest brother, he played everything because he was at a smaller school. So he played running back, linebacker. He was the athlete on the team. So when you're the athlete on a team in a smaller town, they're like, you're the guy, you know. You
They'll
play
use you everywhere.
the yeah, you play the whole game on both sides. And so he did that, and then it was kind of the same thing for my second oldest brother when he was out there. And then once he moved, he went more straight into running back. And for myself, I played predominantly running back and receiver. And so played that starting at 10 all the way through college. And yeah, they were heavily influenced on me in that aspect of life and just training me up, teaching me up, showing me the ropes, showing me the way and how to how to how to navigate that space. So yeah, from 10 to 23, in my mind, I was going to the NFL. That was the goal, that was the outlook, that was the pursuit. And my sophomore year of high school, I really leaned into that and really pressed that issue as far as just what my everyday looked like. Cause people say they want to do things, but there's a difference. Like you can tell the difference when somebody really wants to do something versus when it's just like you just saying that because that's what you're involved in type of
Sure.
thing. And so sophomore year is when I made that transition of just saying like, yeah, no, I want to play professional football to like, no, I'm really trying to play professional football and started eating different, started prioritizing training a lot more. I was working out 3 times a day, eating like crazy, making sure I was gaining weight and just hitting certain markers that I needed to hit at that time. And
And you
so,
said this was a sophomore in high school?
yeah, so my sophomore
Okay.
year of high school is when I really started, really started thinking and looking in that direction and kind of getting that tunnel vision.
Well, and that's what I was going to bring up. So, transitioning from high school to college can be a big leap for some
Hmm.
athletes. And so it sounds like you're already kind of priming yourself for the intensity of what was to come. So, what was it like once you did transition into college as far as training, the schedule, the outside pressure to perform? What was that environment or jump like?
Well, transitioning so I went to, just to give context, I went to a 5A high school, so a bigger high school. We had my graduating class was well over 500 people my senior year. And so we had pretty big school. Of course, everybody knows what Texas football is and at the high school level. So played high level football. at the high school level. Initially signed college-wise to Northwest Mississippi Junior College, which if anybody's seen Last Chance U, the documentary on Netflix, the first season, they're the team that ends up winning the national championship that year for that season of Last Chance U. But so yeah, I signed there initially. 2 weeks before I'm leaving to go to school, their school has a budget cut and they drop 15 scholarships.
Oh my gosh.
And so
I feel like that shouldn't even happen with
yeah,
that short amount of time. That's just
I
wild.
agree. So yeah, I went from being locked in, getting ready to go. I was actually getting ready to go early in June to do summer school so I could be ahead on credits. And yeah, so I don't even find out from the coach at the college. I go to my high school to pick up my helmet and pads to play in an all-star game that summer at the end of the school year. And my coach at the high school that got me in connection with the coach that I got my scholarship at, with my scholarship with, is the one who tells me, like, I remember his name was Coach LaPlante. That was the coach at the college. Coach Vint, my high school coach, is the coach that gave me the news. But I'm picking my pads up, and he's like, "Hey, did you talk to coach?" And I'm like, "No, not since I turned in all my paperwork and everything." He's like, "Yeah, you might want to talk to him." And I'm like, "Well, what's going on?" He basically tells me like, "Yeah, they ended up having to drop your scholarship. You can still go, but you're pretty much gonna have to pay out of pocket for it." And at the time and just the position I was in, like, I had to have some type of scholarship to go
Sure.
to college. I wasn't in a position to pay for school like 100% myself out of pocket because it
Right.
was all gonna be long. It was all gonna be long, and so I find that out the day I'm going to pick my pads up to play in the All-Star game. So I'll go from being up here on like mentally to it's June and I don't know. Like, I don't know now. Like, I don't know. Because, like I said, it's June. So, all the other
Most
schools I was
places are
talking to,
done.
yeah, everybody else I was talking to had already signed, offered who they were going to offer and everything like that. So, it's like, okay, so now what? And my coach, my high school coach, after giving me the news immediately is like, we're going to find you somewhere to play. Just keep working. I've already started sending your film back out and just stay patient, but I got you. And so yeah, I go play my All-Star game. I go to a West Texas A&M camp in Canyon up in Amarillo. And then I think like 2 weeks after that, my coach hits me up and is like, "Hey, we got you something at the school that I ended up going to, which was Panhandle State up in Oklahoma, that I didn't even know existed at that time." Like, never heard of it, never knew anything about it, didn't even know there was a college there because it was only 4 hours from Lubbock.
Mm-hmm.
And so for it to be that close and me never having heard of it, I'm like, what school is this? And so I get online, start looking at stuff. They were a Division II at the time. And me being in the situation I was in, I didn't care. It was like, I got an opportunity. I got some type of scholarship money. I'm going. And so I signed with them in July, which anybody who knows anything about football and scholarships, like that's last minute.
Mm-hmm.
So I signed with them, go out there, same vibe that I was just used to as far as my childhood and growing up, super, super small town, country town. The biggest component of that college was the rodeo team. So that kind of gives context of what type of place it was. You know what I mean? Like
Sure.
their rodeo team was literally going to like the highest level every year and beating like D1 schools.
Sure.
And so that was like the staple in that area and just the type of town that it was. But in that, I go there with the mindset that I'm only going to be here for 2 years and then I'm transferring. Because initially that's what I was doing anyway. I was going junior college. So I was only
Sure.
going to be where I was going for 2 years. And then, because of course, everybody wants to be at a Division I. That's the best route to get to the next level, which is pro.
Right.
And so going in, I'm here for 2 years and then I'm transferring. So I get there because of the circumstances. I'm there kind of as a guy that's like okay, yeah, we gave this guy scholarship money, but he's not the number one guy coming in as far as who he brought in, because prior to that, they had who they already had signed, which was guys from this area that I'm in now in the Metroplex. So guys from Dallas, guys from Houston, guys from Austin. And so I'm there and I'm kind of, as a freshman, on the back burner. But me being me, I don't see it that way. Like, I'm here to play as a freshman. And so I can remember the first week I get there, they had there's a place called the Noble Center, but it was it was like the rec, like the college rec, pretty much, where they had like a small indoor track around the basketball court. It had weights and stuff off to the side. And so I get there early, like a little bit before camp starts, and I'm in there working out, and some other guys that are like returning, like juniors, sophomores, seniors that have already been on the team are in there. A few freshmen are starting to trickle in and stuff like that. But it's like gradually, like the team starting to show up. And like I said before, as a sophomore in high school, that's when I really started taking football serious. So I already had my own like workout routine, stuff that I did, stuff that was like a everyday for me. And that wasn't the case for everybody else, which was kind of weird to me because I'm coming into the situation thinking like, okay, this is college. So that was the transition in my mind. That was like, from high school to college, more people are going to be like me. Because in high school, it was me and a handful of guys out of the whole football team that cared that much. Everybody else was just kind of playing just to be able to say they played.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking when I get to college, that's what was going to be different. Like, more people were going to be like me. More people were going to take training more serious. More people were going to be more dedicated and in that direction. Not so much. A lot of guys still were, in other directions. And seeing that as a freshman was kind of like, okay. And maybe it was just the school I was at, or, whatever the case may be. But that was something that I noticed early that was, and don't get me wrong, there were guys that were, on the type of time that I was on and were taking it serious and were on the weights, did have their own workouts and stuff like that they did outside of the group training. And so those were obviously the guys that I ended up being friends with and were like-minded with, but that still wasn't the majority of the team like I thought it would be.
Yeah.
And
What
so,
did that schedule and training look like for you, Rod? Like, what kind of resources did the school have? Did you guys have your own, somebody was doing just the training and lifting, and then did you have anybody helping with nutrition side of things? Did you have your,
yeah,
like...
we had a smaller college, but typical layout type of infrastructure where, you have the team workouts, you have your strength and conditioning coach, you have what would be called a nutrition plan, but looking back on it, not really. But it was just like, hey, we're gonna kind of give you guys some, some whey protein or whatever, this supplement that we're sponsored with, and stuff like that. But there was no, like I said, this was a Division II college in a smaller area, so
Right.
we're not getting what the Alabamas and the Baylors and TCUs and, you know what I mean, like the bigger D1s are getting as far as their program goes.
Right.
Yeah, that was kind of the layout of it. As far as like if I'm being 100% honest, my training sessions by myself were harder than the training we did as a group. Like, and that I'm not. I know how that's gonna come across and how that's gonna sound to people, but that was just, there's people who were there with me at that time that can vouch for that. Like, I would have guys come work out with me outside of the team workouts and not come work out with me anymore after a few times, or even sometimes after one time, because it's like, yeah, bro, you doing too much. And
Well, and
so,
that's what I was going to ask, Rod. And so how did you kind of structure that as you were developing that for yourself? Because obviously you
mhm.
know you more than anybody. And so was this lifting program at this point, were you lifting heavy and hard? I mean, were you bulking up and trying to get as big as you can, eating everything in sight, trying to,
It was phases of that. Cause like I said, it was something I initially started my sophomore year. And so by the time I get to college, I kind of got a system down. But
mm-hmm,
initially in high school, yeah, it was about me just getting bigger because
mm-hmm.
I wasn't the biggest guy. I was probably the same height I am now, 5'8", 5'9". At that time in high school, I was probably like between 150 and 160 my sophomore year. And so obviously me playing running back and I'm trying to get to the D1 level, that ain't gonna cut it. So begin putting a lot of emphasis on gaining weight, gaining muscle mass. And by the time I got to my senior year, I think I graduated senior year of high school at like between 185 and 190. So
Okay.
still not huge, but a lot bigger than I was my
Right.
sophomore year. So going to college about 190, my freshman year of college, and I finished college at 205. So just gradually built that weight. But as far as my training, my emphasis was more on endurance and explosiveness, obviously, because I played running back.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to have a battery and I had to be explosive. I had to be able to repetitiously put out explosive movement. So that
Mm-hmm.
was what my training was kind of blanketed in, was just explosive movements, power cleans, box jumps, broad jumps, squatting, just different, being explosive from the foundation, from the bottom up. Outside, as far as on the field goes, a lot of ladder drills, cone drills, bungee cord work, parachutes. I had a full layout of stuff that I would do, like on my own outside of the team workouts.
Mm-hmm.
Had treadmill workouts that I would do where I would run with weight vests on and just all kind of stuff. But it was always basically some type of training in combination with resistance on my body.
Mm-hmm.
So that by the time I got to the field and it was just my body, I had that much more burst, that much more explosiveness.
Sure.
And so, yeah, that was what my training was mostly about, as far as me being off to the side by myself.
Right. Well, and you said when I was out there on the field, so clearly you had that mindset going in as a freshman. How did it
Hmm.
work? I mean, did playing time go in your favor? I mean, I
Yeah.
had no doubt that you put in the work and showed them
Hmm.
what you were capable of, but how did that go as far as your playing time throughout those years?
So yeah, I come in as a true freshman, play as a true freshman, no red shirt. Overall, to sum it all up, I played 4 years straight, no red shirt. I traveled every game. I was at I suited out every game, played every game from my freshman year to my senior year. And that was, like I said, in spite of me coming in as a guy who signed to the team in July. And just to put even more into context, because of the location, because of the size of the school, because of the culture of the school, this is not a school that a lot of guys stay at, especially coming in as freshmen. It's like we had an extremely high turnover rate in the freshman classes that came in.
Why was that, you think?
Because, like I said, because of the area, because of the
Oh,
culture of the
okay.
college, because of
Gotcha.
just the
Unfamiliarity of just that.
yeah, because you're bringing guys. The majority of the initial recruits are from the metropolitan areas. So
Mm-hmm.
they're from Austin, they're from Dallas, they're from Houston, they're from big
Yeah.
cities, and you're taking them from there out to this school in the middle of nowhere,
Mm-hmm.
surrounded by windmill fields and cotton fields,
Yeah.
and the priority on campus is the rodeo team.
Right. That's
So it's
actually
like,
really funny, Rod. I didn't realize where you went and played football at, but it's funny because I feel like you, Gavin, and I had very similar experiences with him playing baseball in Barstow, California. And then
mm,
I played basketball at a small junior college in Casper, Wyoming. But same thing is I think they
mm,
were really known for like their livestock judging.
mhm.
So,
Yeah.
you get some of these basketball players from New York, Miami, across the world. We are getting
Yep.
foreign exchange students and players. And so you get people
Yeah.
from all across the nation that come to these places and they're like, what planet am
Yeah.
I on?
Exactly. And so for that reason, there was a lot of turnover. There was a lot of guys transferring in and out, in and out, in and out. And from my freshman class to my senior year, I would say maybe 10 guys made it from my freshman, like my full freshman class of like 50 recruits that were brought in to my senior year. Like I said, maybe 10 guys that stayed in that 4-year window.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, high turnover rate because of that, just the difference in culture, the difference in environment, the difference in what guys want the college experience to be.
Sure.
Not a lot of those components in
Mm-hmm.
that space. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? The saying there was, and it was actually on our like part of our like team pitch and slogan and stuff was no man's land. So like when people would come and play there, like they would say that on the intercom and loudspeaker. And it's like that's where you at. You know what I mean?
Sure.
That was the team saying. And so
Yeah.
yeah, it was for me. It was the norm because that's how I grew up.
Mm-hmm.
But I could see really quick a lot of guys struggle with that component
Yeah.
of the isolation. And,
Mm-hmm.
every weekend guys are leaving campus and going to Norman, Oklahoma, going to, Oklahoma City, going to bigger cities just to have the college experience. And it's
Right.
like, it was more about that than it was about why they were there.
Sure.
And for me, it was the opposite. Like I didn't care about any of those things. I didn't care about partying. I didn't care about drinking. I didn't care about smoking. I didn't care about chasing girls. I didn't care about a lot
Yeah.
of the stuff that guys care about as a 18, 19-year-old kid coming from high school to college. I was
Right.
there mentally to play ball, get film, to leave. That was my head coming in day one.
Right.
And so,
So obviously football got you there. Did you
mhm,
know that you wanted to go? Is that where you got your business degree?
mhm, yeah,
Did you know that you wanted to go into that?
yeah. I went in as a business major, um, and that was from the foresight of my brother, my oldest brother. By that time, he had already had his business degree, and in combination with that, my mom was a teacher, elementary school teacher. So she had her degree in teaching. My dad at some college, but didn't end up finishing. My second oldest brother could have went to college, just didn't want to go to college. Just personality wise, didn't match with him. Um, yeah, coming in from an education standpoint, I chose business because I I don't know. I just kind of always felt like I needed to have an understanding in that direction.
And so many different avenues you can take with that. And I know that's a lot of times why people pursue business and then they kind of fine tune what they want to
Yep.
specialize in. But it's kind of a good overarching start because there's a lot of opportunities in business.
Yeah, and that was a mindset for me is I wanted to be financially savvy by the time, because like I said, at this time in my head, I'm going to the NFL. So by the time I get there, I want to know how money works. I want to know what to do with my money and be a business owner and just have that financial literacy and understanding. And so that was my reason for wanting to do that. And then I just, again, being observant, I'm looking around at other guys who are getting kinesiology degrees and stuff like that. Not that there's anything wrong with getting that, but they're getting it because the classes are easy and because it doesn't require a lot of effort. But on the back end, they don't have any real intention of doing anything with that. You know what I
Right.
mean? It's like, because most of the time, if you get a kinesiology degree, you got to get a teaching degree as well, because the coach at any level that's really going to pay you, you're going to have to teach too, especially early until you start coaching college. And even in college, you most likely going to have to do some type of teaching. And so, yeah, guys are getting kinesiology degrees, but it's like you don't have any intention of being a teacher.
Sure.
So why are you getting that? But like I said,
Right.
it was because it was the easy route at the
Right.
time.
Yeah. And so you made it to year 4. Was there a specific
Mhm.
moment or realization that made you did you just start questioning football or thinking about pursuing something different or
No,
what happened there?
I went, played all 4 years straight, finished my senior semester on campus. My last college football game was in November. So, of course, the semester ends. You have finals, you have Thanksgiving break, you go back, and you have Christmas break. And so, after my fall semester ends, my girlfriend, who's now my wife, gets pregnant. And so, I got a kid on the way. At that time, in my mind, still going to the NFL. Now I got all the more reason to go to the NFL.
Mhm.
I know for sure I had my NFL regional combine coming up. And then I was working to get a pro day because my school didn't have pro days. So I was trying to get in at somebody else's. Ended up not getting the opportunity to do that because pro days are usually private and for the athletes that are at that school that's having the pro day. So most
Mm.
people aren't trying to let you into their pro day from another school. It happens, but you got to know somebody. I didn't really
Okay.
know anybody.
I didn't know that.
So didn't get a pro day, just had my NFL regional. Went to my NFL regional, didn't do horrible, but I didn't have the testing numbers that I needed to have in alignment with me coming from a smaller school that was going to get me that
Like
pool
stand out
of,
from the crowd sort of thing.
yeah, I was more of my ability showed most on the field. And that
Mhm.
wasn't to say that I tested bad, but I tested about average. Like I said, I graduated 5'9", 205. My 40 was like mid 4'4", 4'5". So not slow, but not super, super fast either. I was kind of like in that middle range.
Okay.
And so slightly undersized for what most NFL teams are looking for. My speed, I didn't have crazy speed, but I wasn't slow either. And had like a 37, 38-inch vert. So vert wasn't bad. And like I said, testing wise, I was kind of a B minus to B plus guy. But on the field, once it came to one on ones, once it came to like actual competition, is
Sure.
where I
And just the
stood out.
IQ of the game.
hmm And so at the workouts, once you get the one on ones and you get lined up with the linebacker or the DB or whoever's supposed to be covering you, that's when I really stood out. That's when my ability really showed. And so because I go on from my NFL combine to
Where was that, Rod?
that was in Houston.
And so how does that process work? Do you apply for that or can you just show up and
No,
go for it or
it's
how's that?
for as far as your NFL combine goes, it's a window of eligibility that you have, and so basically what it sums up to be is you have to have played your senior year of college football to be eligible to go to the regional or higher, because they have NFL regional combines and then they have like the invite only combine that you watch
Okay.
on TV.
Okay.
But to be eligible for even the regional combine, you have to have played your senior year, and you can't like be over a certain age. And like there's when you go through the forms, they have all of these requirements you have to meet
Sure.
to be eligible to go. Which I met all those playing 4 years straight, being the age that I was. So I was good to go on that. And so I do that, and then from there, like I said, so this is my senior year. I'm 21 or 20, turning 21. Um, I go back home to Lubbock because I got a baby on the way. And so I go home, start working road construction for Lubbock County Road and Bridge Department, where my oldest brother, who I said had his bachelor's degree in business, is the department manager for the budget. So he ran the whole budget for that department at that time. So he kind of got me in with that
Mhm.
job. And so I start working there, and I'm working 40 hours a week there, Monday to Thursday, 3-day weekends, and training for workouts. So from the time I went home after my fall semester to the time I started martial arts, I was going to workouts. I could confidently say I had at least 20 professional workouts between NFL, CFL, Euro leagues, indoor football leagues, you name it. I went to spring leagues, like whatever
And
league.
this is all, you just kind of are looking to see what these workouts are like to go and just get more and more exposure ultimately, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, the workouts are hosted by scouts, and based off of your performance, you get called up or don't get called up is basically how it works. So they're NFL combine formatted.
Okay, so you had this kind of spree of months, I'm assuming like 4 to 6 months, where you were going to all of these workouts that were held by Scout. No.
No. This is almost 3 years.
Oh,
Yeah.
dang. I didn't realize that this was like, so you went back to Lubbock. You are working through construction, and throughout those years afterwards, you're going to all of these trainings and workouts.
So from my fall semester of my senior year, which is, what was that, 2016. So from 2016 until, because I started a different breed in June of 2020. From 2016 to mid 2018, 2019, I'm in this window of working road construction and going to football camps.
Okay, I gotcha. So what was that transition like then? I mean, like, what ultimately sparked your interest of you walking into an MMA gym?
Well, like I said, I was going through the pursuit of trying to be a professional football player while at the same time being a brand new dad and navigating that space of being dad, being basically a husband, working full time. I went back because I left my fall semester of my senior year. So degree-wise, I hadn't graduated yet. So the initial plan was for me to go back home and finish online. But at that time, they didn't have the classes I needed online. So I would have had to stay on campus. So at that time, I was just like, in my mind, I'm going to the NFL. I'll worry about finishing school later. So left school, went back home, started working, kept training, trying to get a contract. Go through all that. As I'm going through that, I am frustrated because just to give context also on just how football was for me in general, I was always a good player on a mediocre to bad team. From playing at 10 years old all the way to college, it was like I was always the guy who, out of the majority, probably cared the most in comparison to the other, because there were other guys that cared as much as I cared, but we were probably the 10 to 15% of the team, whereas everybody else was doing it for whatever reason they were doing it for. But it wasn't to get to the next level. It wasn't because this is what they were really passionate about. It was just kind of what they always have done, or they were physically gifted, but mentally they weren't really there. You know what I mean? They were big, they were fast, they were strong, and that's why they got offered.
Sure.
But when you watch them play, when you watch their everyday actions, it's like you don't really want to play football. And so to go through that from 10 years old all the way to 21 years old, where you're constantly pouring yourself into something that you're not really getting back what you putting in. The people that you're doing it with don't really care as much as you care. You start to ask, for what? You know what I mean? Like, why am I doing all of this and going to, because like I said, at that point, I'm going to professional workouts that are not in Lubbock. These workouts are in Dallas. They're in Houston. They're in
Sure.
Austin. I went to a 3-day CFL workout in California. Like, I'm traveling, spending money, time, energy, effort to do these things. And after going to so many workouts and performing, but getting the same kind of, oh, well, you didn't really go to a big enough school, or, oh, I see, the guy that ends up getting the offer and he was the third string running back at LSU, he doesn't have 30 seconds of film, but he was the third string running back at LSU. So he's the one who gets offered just stuff like that.
Sure.
I started really seeing the political side of things, which that component exists in everything. But I just got to a point to where it's like, this is not what I want anymore. Like, I'm putting way more into this than I'm getting out of it. And I just started to feel like my level of output could be much better used in another direction. And so to bring that back full circle, martial arts was something for me that, though I never did, it was always that thing over there that I wanted to do. And so, because just to give history with myself on martial arts, my mom was a school teacher. And so from first grade to middle school, I went to the same school my mom taught at. So before school, after school, I'm there with her. Well, there was a janitor, older black janitor. He was probably like at least 50, maybe older than that. But over time, staying after school, me, my mom, a few other teachers throughout the school, maybe 5 to 10 people in the whole building. I'm running around the school because I'm there every day. You know what I mean? So me and this janitor established a relationship and get pretty cool. Well, he was into like old school martial arts, kung fu, all that kind of stuff. And so he starts bringing old school mixed martial arts, like Enter the Dragon, the Bruce Lees, the Van Dams, all of those old VHSs, and giving them to me and basically letting me keep them until I don't want to watch them no more. And then I bring it back, he give me another one. I bring it back, he give me another one. And this is at like 6, 7 years old. So this is when I first have any type of interaction with martial arts, and it grabs my attention. Like most with Bruce Lee. Like I had a poster in my room at my parents' house on the wall of him for the longest. And so that was like my introduction to some type of martial arts, but it was still something that I never really got my hands on. Like, he would kind of show me forms and katas and, like I said, old school kung fu style stuff that wasn't nowhere close to being applicable to what I do now.
Right.
But it was still martial arts, you know what I mean? It was still fighting.
Yeah.
And so I have that experience as a 6, 7-year-old. Don't have anything anywhere close to martial arts from that point on. Like I said, I started doing football, I started dance, I started band, playing the saxophone. I started doing all of what I was doing in that direction. Even if I wanted to fight or box or do anything, my mom, her younger brother boxed, and he had, from her point of view, a very bad experience. He, as a younger fighter, he was like 17, 18 years old fighting like 30, 40-year-old men. And so from her perception, anytime fighting got brought up, like, that was where her mind went. And so I couldn't even entertain the idea of getting put into like karate or jiu-jitsu or boxing as a kid. Like, that wasn't even an option. And being in Lubbock, in that area, you didn't have a lot of those options anyway. You know what I mean? Like, there wasn't a lot of that around at that time.
Right.
And so never something that I could get my hands on. And then obviously the UFC comes into play, and you start seeing, the GSPs and the Anderson Silvers and the John Joneses. And this is around the time I think I'm in middle school is when that like really became something I started to regularly see. And my brother would buy the fights and have fight parties and stuff like that. And so Anderson Silva, I know for sure, was like the first real mixed martial artist I watched that I was like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I could see myself doing that, but still so far away from it that it was like, I could see myself doing that, but I probably never would type of
Right.
thing.
No
Cause
exposure.
cause I'm still playing football. I'm still doing what I do. I'm still playing football. I'm still dancing. I'm still
Mm-hmm.
in my lane, but looking at it like, man, that's dope. Like I could see myself doing that. And so, like I said, to fast forward to where now I'm 24 years old. I'm frustrated because pretty much my life's work up to this point, I'm at the point of like, I'm good on it. I've done everything I wanted to do with this. I'm not passionate about this anymore. Like, I don't care to do this anymore. I don't care to pursue this anymore. But I've been in the gym every day from my sophomore year to now, 24 years old. I worked out. Like, I didn't miss a week in the gym. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like, that was just, at that point, it was a way of life. Like, that was just who I was. And so I'm in the best shape of my life at 24 years old, but I'm deciding I don't want to play football no more. And literally, in the moment in my mind that I said, I don't want to play football anymore, fight was like the next stop. I couldn't do everything that I did training wise and just
Hang it
sit
all
that
up.
down and be like, all right, I'm gonna work. Because on the other end of that, I worked, like I said, road construction at the county. Well, in that space, I started that job at 22, 23 years old. And the format of that, 20 years, you can retire and you're gonna get a check the rest of your life. Well, I'm in there 21, 22 years old. I got everybody, everybody else that works there is 40 plus, few 30-year-olds, maybe out of, I think like 50 staff. There was maybe one or two other guys that were in their 20s. Mostly everybody there is 30, 40 plus. So they're telling me, oh, you 21 years old, man, you can retire at 40, this and this and that. You just stick around, stick it out, you'll be good. But in my mind, I'm like, you talking about the next 20 years of my life. Like, I'm
Saw
not ready.
it
I'm not
differently.
ready. Yeah, I'm not ready to just be a road construction worker for the next 20 years and not be nothing else. Because
Yeah.
up to this point in my life, I was going to the NFL. So now that I understand and know, no, you're not. And it's like, okay, now what?
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, me being in the gym, me doing everything that I had done up to that point, and just being in the best shape of my life, it was like, well, you kind of always wanted to do that. Why not now?
Yeah. Well, and I think that says a lot about you too, Rod. I think it's so easy because that story that you just explained to working through and having that belief of getting in the NFL and not making it, the
Mm-hmm.
NBA not making it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So many people and athletes can
Yeah.
relate to that story and how you respond to not making it because not everybody does.
Yeah.
Is truly kind of that next factor in your life,
Mm-hmm.
obviously. And so the fact that you didn't, because I do think it would just be so easy for some of these individuals to have self-doubt and let that consume them in
Oh, yeah.
terms of, well, this was me, this was my whole identity. And so now, and then maybe making a complete left turn and doing something opposite is
Yeah.
maybe great for some people, but for you to still see like I'm grinding and this is who I am and I've put forth the work ethic and that's not over yet. Now, how can I pivot
Mm-hmm.
and go into a positive direction and still make something of myself and have that self-belief is pretty admirable because I think that is the hard thing to do.
Yeah. And it, me doing that was in light of my understanding of what you just said. I seen other guys not have an identity, so to speak, outside of being a football player. I seen other guys that it was like, once the realization really sunk in that I'm not playing football anymore, they didn't really have anything else. It was just like, okay, well, what do I do now? And it's like, for me, and I look back on that moment because I talk about it with people all the time. Because there was two particular people in the gyms that I trained at that time. Because I worked out at Freedom Fitness, and I worked out at I can't remember the name of the other gym. And I started out as Body Works, and then they changed the name to something else. But I worked out at these two gyms, and at Freedom Fitness, there was a guy by the name of Brian Joseph, who I initially met as a substitute in school. But later on, he ended up being a trainer at the gym that I would work out at every day in high school, football training. And he fought. He was an MMA fighter. And so I would see him back when I was in high school in there training and doing privates with people and stuff like that. And he would tell me about his fights and we would have conversations, but it was still something that he did. I was in high school at the time getting ready to make it to college. And so I had that history with him. And then I had another guy that I didn't meet till later training, doing all of what I was doing to go to the camps after leaving college. A guy named Irv. He worked at the other gym that I would go to, and they actually knew each other, that I later found out. They actually trained together. And so he ran the cardio boxing class at that gym. And so I would see him, doing that in the boxing room when I was still training to go to these pro camps. And I would consistently have people approach me in the gym just because the workouts that I was doing were pretty intense. Some of the stuff that I was doing was like attention grabbing.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes he would come and be like, "Hey man, I see you in here a lot. Like, what are you doing? What are you training for?" And I would tell him and stuff like that. And like I said, the day that I just made that decision that I was going to pursue martial arts, I was sitting on the turf in the gym. I had just finished the workout and I'm like, I don't want to pursue football anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But the immediate in that, as soon as I said I didn't want to pursue football anymore, then my next stop was to fight. And even I don't know, like, why that was so automatic.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it was because I was frustrated. Maybe it was because, I don't know. Like, I still look back on that moment like, why was that transition so automatic? And I feel like it was maybe because, that was just what was for me. And in my belief and my faith in God, that was just that. You know what I mean? Like, okay, you don't want that no more because this is what I really got for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I doubled down on feeling like that because as soon as I made that decision, as soon as I told myself that's what I wanted, I went to Brian because he was the only person I really knew that was like direct in that, and told him like, "Hey man, I want to fight." And there was no resistance from the time I decided I wanted to fight in my initial pursuit of it. When I went and told him that, he was like, "Okay, cool. We could start working, start training." And then I went back to the other gym, told Irv that's what I want to start doing. Me and him started getting pad work, and that was that. And from there, I told myself I wanted to train for a year, like a solid year before I took my first fight. And about 6 months, 4 to 6 months into me and Brian training, he took me to Different Breed.
Okay.
I wanted to remember this date specifically. I went to Different Breed in June of 2020. And that's when I started training there. And from there, we meet. And I have that experience. But yeah, that was my transition from me being and pursuing football and wanting to go to the NFL to now fighting. It was just that simple. It was just me sitting there at the end of a workout one day and being like, I didn't do and invest all the time in training to be the athlete that I am, to not compete in anything ever again. Like, I gotta compete in something. I gotta use all the attributes that I've established as an athlete in some direction. That can't just get put on the shelf and I go work the rest of my life. That's not an option. And so
Yeah.
that component and understanding combined with me wanting something, because from there it's like, okay, you want to compete. What can I compete in that is individual? Because I've done the team thing my whole life. I don't want that no more. I want something to where if I lose, it's because I didn't do enough. I didn't train. Whatever the outcome is, I want it to be on me. I don't want any other outside variables or things to be able to point at as to why the outcome wasn't what I wanted it to be.
Sure.
And so in all of that, it was like fighting was just sitting there like in this case glowing. Like, this is what we got for you. And from there was never a second guess or, you sure you want to do that? Or, I got that from other people. But for me, when I made the decision and said, I want to fight, and I find that funny too when I look back on that. I didn't say I wanted to train or I just wanted to learn how to fight. Like, I wanted to fight day one. When I decided that's what I wanted to do. Like, it was never like, I just want to, take some classes and see how it goes. Like,
Sure.
No, from the time, from that day of making that decision, it was to fight. It was never to do anything else.
Yeah. And so I do remember, Rod, that you were, and you still do, but you competed in jiu-jitsu tournaments quite a bit before you merge into your amateur fights, correct?
Yeah. Get into different breed and getting in with Jason and Gabe and starting to establish some type of understanding of what it was to grapple, what it was to do jiu-jitsu. I wasn't opposed to any particular one thing, or there was no angle of, okay, I want to do this, but I really only want to do this part of it. Like I see from certain people that get into it. And it's not that there's something wrong with that, but for me, my goal was to fight. My goal was to be a mixed martial artist. So with that understanding from day one, it was about me establishing the skill sets to be able to do that efficiently. And I already had the mindset and understanding of what it was to be a competitive athlete. So I think that went a long way too, as far as just my understanding of, if you're going to do this, these are the steps that need to be taken for you to have any type of chance or success in this. Because I also understood I'm getting on the mat for the first time at 25 years old. The majority of the people that do this have been doing this since they could walk.
Right.
So,
well, and
I'm
especially
behind.
now, I think we're really starting to see youth martial arts in whatever avenue. It's really growing. And as you go into competitions, we get to compete against 18-year-olds that have been doing it since they were 5, which I don't think it always was the case. But yeah, starting late in the game was definitely, like, it's becoming more and more evident,
Absolutely. And like for me, in my experience, coming to different breed, I get there and I see Curly and I see Bubba, but I'm seeing like these pretty much kids that are like really good. I mean, to put it into context, that me at 25, as athletic as I am, like, they're fucking me up. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And that in itself was an experience for me that it just, like I said, it further put into perspective where I was at and the work I was going to have to do for this to be a possibility for me.
Sure.
And so I just, again, doubled down on all of those prior concepts and understanding that I already had about being in a competitive arena and pursuing something competitively as an athlete, that the work is the forefront of it. Like,
yeah,
there's
it
no
almost
way
sounds
around
like
it.
it kind of fed your hunger for that, though, too. It seems like that's something that's been instilled in you from a really young age. The work itself didn't seem like it deterred you away from pursuing whatever it was. That was almost like what you were used to. That's kind of was like your bread and butter. And so what a perfect turn, because as we know, going into martial arts, it's never ending learning and growth. And so then it's just a matter of how much are you willing to put into it and how much are you able to take from it and apply it. And everybody obviously is different in that manner, but it does sound like that it was meant to be.
Yeah, no, the concept of work, and I wouldn't even put it just from a competing standpoint, but just work in general. In my experience in life, anytime, because I'm big on self-reflection and just constantly evaluating myself and looking at myself as if I'm sitting outside of myself, and just if I had to write down on a sheet of paper what I was at the time and what I felt like I was doing good versus what I could do better. Work has always been at the forefront of that. And that's something I can firmly say I took from my dad. The word work is probably what I've heard him say more than anything else. And he's embodied that in so many different ways throughout my life. Just anytime I take the time to reflect and go back and look at it, that's not just for me, but for my brothers as well. And they got that from him before I got it from him. So they also imparted that and influenced me in that regard of whatever it is that you pursuing or you claiming you want to do, it starts with the work.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't start with anything else, and it doesn't come from anything else. If you're not willing to do the work, if you're not willing to invest the time, you're not even going to have a chance. And so, like I said, growing up in the country, growing up where work was just kind of the norm, living on 5 acres, is like you gotta do what you gotta do just to be able to maintain that, just from cutting grass. We had animals at one point. We had pigs and chickens and attending to them, dealing with, like horses, and just the experience, some of the experiences that I had growing up as far as just work goes in general. I got a good understanding at an early age what work could do for you and
Mm-hmm.
provide for you outside of having anything else. So you may not have the resources or access that somebody else has, but if your work ethic stands out or exceeds your peers, that's going to take you way farther than any connections, any resources, open doors that somebody might already have pre-made for them. You know what I mean? And
Sure.
like I said, I learned that and got to see that at a young age, and not even just from the men in my life, but from my mom. Like I said, my mom was a school teacher. I can remember there was a specific series of testing that she really, really struggled with in the window from like 6 to about 9 years old. There was a test that she took multiple times trying to pass for her to actually become a like certified teacher and like complete her degree. And it was a test she had to pay for, and she only could take in a certain window of time so many times before she would have to wait a long time to be able to take again. And she took that test, I know, at least 6 times. And from me being 6 years old to 9. And there was some times where had like go and sit in the building while she was taking the test.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like I said, just that resiliency and the understanding that if you really claim to want something, you got to be willing to keep showing up
Right.
for
Even
for
if it
what it
doesn't
takes
work
to
out
get it.
like the initial attempt, to
Exactly.
like pick yourself back up and,
Mhm.
okay, here we go again,
Yeah. If
That's
this is what you claiming that you really want.
Yeah. It sounds like, Rod, you had some true examples of that, and you started seeing from a young age the benefits of that work ethic. So let's just kind of talk about the birth of
Mhm.
your name, or your fight name, Workhorse. And so, as many people know, especially in the
Mhm.
professional world, that you go by Rod Workhorse Moore. So
Mhm.
is that where it came from originally, and can you tell us a little bit about just what that name means to you personally?
Well, as far as the name being applicable to me specifically, because that's a term that's been used forever.
Sure.
As far as it being applicable to me and who I am, I initially was given that in football, played running back. And over time of me just doing what I did and being who I was in high school, when I really locked in and started pursuing that for real, I trained 3 times a day. Like, as a sophomore in high school. And that wasn't on anybody else, from anybody else's guidance or pressure. That was me doing that because that's what I wanted to do. And you don't see that. You know what I mean? You don't see sophomores in high school at 14 and 15 years old training 3 times a day because they want to. And so from that point, that kind of became just my everyday. And from sophomore to me leaving for college, I worked out 3 times a day. Like I worked out in the morning, I did the team session in the middle of the day, and then I went to the gym again at night. And I did that from sophomore year all the way until I left from college. And then even in college, I had all my workouts outside of the group sessions that I did, pretty much the same type of schedule. But on average, I worked out twice a day for years. You know what I mean? Like that was just me. And so because of that, that name, that title just kind of became the running thing. Anybody who knew me in that window of time, if you asked them to describe me, that's how they would have described me. And even still now, it's like, oh yeah, he the one that's always working out. Like that's just always been kind of my staple as far as personality trait. He's the extremist in that facet of life, is just gym, 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 gym. And in alignment with that, lifestyle wise, I acclimated my lifestyle outside of that to that early. Like, this is gonna sound crazy to say, but I stopped drinking alcohol my sophomore year of high school. And so I made the commitment to stop drinking alcohol my sophomore. So I'm not to say that before that I was just down in bottles, but I did drink prior to my sophomore year of high school. But at that point in my life, I decided like this doesn't benefit me in any way in anything that I'm trying to pursue. So what am I doing it for? And I started to establish that mindset across the board to where it's like, if it's not contributing to what I'm going for, I'm not really trying to participate. And that was partying. That was, like I said, chasing girls. That was across the board. At a lot younger age than most, I kind of established that tunnel vision of, if
Very
this is what I want.
goal-oriented mindset.
Exactly. And so from all of that, that's kind of where that name was established. And then getting into fighting, that was already who I was. That was already me. And so it just naturally had a ring to it. You know what I mean? Like that's just what made sense, because I seen how other guys got their names or whatever. And more times than none, it's the gimmicky kind of sales pitch, attention grabbing component for a lot of guys. Whereas for me, I just wanted I wanted it to be something that was genuine to me. And also from a business aspect, I wanted it to be something I could tie into business.
Yeah.
Because I understood early, like I said, I needed to have business tied to what I did as an athlete.
Right. Yeah. And so you've obviously turned Wurkhorse into more than just a fight name. It's become a brand, it's a mindset, it's evolved over the years. And so tell us a little bit about the evolution of your brand and where that creative side came out.
Yeah. Again, my brothers, particularly my oldest brother, very, very business minded individual. He's owned multiple businesses outside of what he does career wise, which, just to put into a little bit of context more of who he is, when I was leaving college, he was the budget manager for Lubbock County Road and Bridge Department. He's now, this many years later, the road superintendent for that department. So just to explain what that means to people who don't understand, any road construction or development that happens in the county of Lubbock, Texas, goes through him first. And so that's all the way up to the commissioners.
Right.
So to start from just being the budget manager and running the financial side of things to that, and while doing that, he owned a semi-pro football team. He owned a landscaping company that I worked for, where we had over 60 like base clientele customers that we rotated like bi-weekly. He owned a barbecue catering company, which he still owns, runs, and operates. He makes patio furniture and indoor furniture, living room sets. Like, he does so many different things. He welds barbecue grills. Like, he can weld a trailer barbecue pit from scratch. He has two of them now that he he has and others that he's done for other people. And so I could go on and on just about who he is and as
Yeah.
well as my other brother. But this is all stems and is rooted in our parents and the foundation that they set for us, not with a lot. We didn't grow up with money. We didn't grow up with any type of high social or economic status. We grew up blue collar, you get what you work for. And in that, you establish and start to become a well-rounded individual to an extent to where, to say all of what I just said about my brother, it's like a lot of people would say you couldn't be all of that. You know what I mean? You couldn't do all of those things in all of those different directions. I bear witness to it. And in my own right, in my own way, I've done it. You know what I mean? I've done a lot of things in a lot of different directions at a high level that, according to other people, wasn't possible.
Right.
And so, but it was just initially, like I said, off of the mindset that if you're willing to work for it, you can really do what you want to do.
Right. Sometimes people are just kind of setting these limitations or
Yep.
barriers for themselves.
Or allowing others to set those barriers or limitations for them.
Sure.
And to circle back to your question with the brand and just the overall concept of Wurkhorse, that's what it's about. It's about, because I'm a huge advocate and just big on personal development. And so that's the foundation of what Wurkhorse is all about. It's about personal development. It's about constantly evaluating who you are and what you're doing good, what you could be doing better, and consistently working to develop in those things that you can clearly see. And that's not based in one specific thing. That's who you are as a whole,
Sure.
as a person in totality. So yeah, that's what the brand is about. That's what it's for. That's what it represents.
I love it. And Rod, explain to me, how did the logo come about? Because I love it.
Yeah. Well, back to middle school, I was in chess club. And chess is a game that I love. It's a game that I played for years, and it aligns and is tied into kind of my mindset and how I see life, and just having to be strategic, calculated, and intentional about how you move and what the goal is. So it's okay, Workhorse, chess piece. Um was my initial in sitting down and saying, all right, we got this idea. How are we going to materialize it? How are we going to bring it to life? The chess piece was my choice. And then from that, my brother took it and put his idea, his mind on it, around it. And just through me and him bouncing back and forth off of each other, the brand logo came to be. And that's how it came about. But initially off of the chess piece and me having the name Wurkhorse, from there it was just more of a design thing. And he sent me back the first initial logo of the horse inside the shield. And I'm like, okay, like that. Let's put the name down the middle of the horse. And then we just kept going back and forth from there until we kind of got it to a point of like, all right, that looks good. Let's go with that. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, it's a really good and universal brand too. And I think for anybody that has played chess, they know that it is a game of just mental warfare. I mean, I really do love it. I haven't played since like junior high, but that was what we would do. I would sit down in my advisory class and I had a kid who was just a genius and so good at chess and would try and teach me. And of course, I think at this point I'm like maybe learning the basics, but I really do admire some of those chess fanatics out there, because it's another one of those avenues where you can always evolutionize your game and continue to get better at it. And so,
And in that's what's drawn me to pretty much everything that I've been involved in, is the component of no matter how long you do it, you could always be better at it. And that applies in life itself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we should never like get stationary or comfortable with where you're at.
Exactly. But a lot of people do. And that particular singular thing leads to a lot of people's downfalls in dealing with what a lot of people are dealing with as far as anxiety and depression and just all these other things that life gives you to struggle with. I feel is rooted in getting away from, or just having the mindset that at a certain point you don't have to learn anymore. You don't have to challenge yourself anymore. You don't have to put yourself in spaces of growing anymore. It's like a lot of people's mindset is once they're out of school, they don't have to read anymore. They don't have to study anymore. They don't have to intellectually challenge themselves anymore. It's like, well, I went to school, I graduated, I'm good. And that's such a you put such a cap on yourself and cut yourself off to from a potential standpoint of who you could be. You shorten that so much, having that outlook and that mindset of past a certain point, I don't have to learn anymore. I don't have to do anything anymore. I can just be.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a mindset and a mentality that I've intentionally made a point to stay away from. And I've always drawn to things that forced me to have to go in the opposite direction of, no matter how long you do what you do, there's always something to perfect. There's always something to work on. There's always something to be better at.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you made that leap into football to changing directions, diving into martial arts,
Mhm.
sounds like you already went into self-reflecting and trying to, I'm sure, develop a game plan. So
Yep.
this is probably not the right term, but you went in as like big boy status, right? Like all football's about is like getting big and strong.
Mhm.
And then as we know in martial arts, yeah, I mean, you can be big and strong, but that's not what it's all about. And so
Mhm.
you went in at low 200s. You said you were 205.
Well, by this time, I left college at 205. In the window of me doing all of those camps and training, I transitioned to more of a hybrid, to make myself more appealing to being picked up,
Okay.
of being a slot receiver and running back. So I shaved back down to about 185.
Okay.
And so by the time I started training, that's where I was at. I was in the 80s.
Okay. And so then when you started going into competitions, how did you shift your level of training and diet and just, relationship with food and your schedule in that manner?
That was and still is a very evolving process. At that time, I'm green. You know what I mean? I'm in a space where I'm 100% brand new. Yeah, I'm an athlete. Yeah, I know how to move. Anybody in martial arts or that has ever done martial arts, know you're doing very particular things. And so if there are things that you haven't done before, it doesn't matter what other experience or ability you have, it means nothing in that space.
Mm-hmm.
So in starting to do jujitsu, in starting to wrestle, in striking, I'm just absorbing. I'm
Yeah.
just a sponge at that point, and even still in those spaces, and just trying to soak up and learn every and anything I can, and then in my own time take what I know from just a performance standpoint and say, okay, how can I acclimate my training to fit up and complement these particular movements, these particular techniques? And that's what it's been from starting to now, and will always be, is me just continuing to evolve in that aspect, in my own individual training, of taking technique and breaking it down to a point to where I can connect the dots of how to enhance it from my prior life experiences.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's nice that you already had, like the mindset to try and continuously fine tune and adjust your own personal training, diet,
Mhm.
all of that. Because I do think the beauty and the interesting thing about martial arts is you get into some of these gyms, like, different breed was one where, okay, we have this group of fighters that we're going to go compete. We're going to all kind of train like a fighting camp. They would try and structure it where it's like,
Mhm.
everybody's just going to grind it out. But from like a non-competitor like me, kind of outside looking in, it was really interesting to watch each of the fighters from an individual perspective and how they weight cut, how they treat themselves diet-wise. Obviously, coming in smelling like smoke, there was just different lifestyles. And so even though, yes, there is a team aspect once you're in the gym and the amount of work, even if everybody's trying to put in 110%, it's still somebody that comes in and you don't even know what you don't know yet. You have to quickly be able to gauge what you think is, okay, is that the right way to do it? Try and drop 20 pounds in 5 days? Or is there a better way, And so it's like you quickly have to figure that out, is what is the norm and then what is going to be my way, I'm sure, as preparing and training and making sure that you're feeling at your best by the time competition comes around.
No, 100%. And in my time and experience from that back then to now, and that's something again that I love about martial arts, man, is it truly draws everyone from everywhere. You get every type of person there is on the mats, and that's all the way from training and people who are just doing it for training to build confidence, to have a workout and be in shape, to whatever reason it is, all the way to I want to do this at the highest level. It's still an individual thing at the end of the day, and you still have to individually be held accountable for what your output ultimately looks like. And so it always, no matter what you're doing in life, but for sure in martial arts, it always circles back to you. It always circles back to your perspective, your approach, your output, what you're doing and what you're not doing. And that component of it is what drew me to it initially. And the longer I do it, what draws me in more, because it constantly holds you accountable and constantly puts a mirror in your face and says, this is what you look like. You know what I mean? And it's blunt, it's direct. And those components is, again, what draw me to it even more, because we live in times and in a society where that's not your everyday. Everybody is walking on eggshells and scared to say things a certain way and scared to do things a certain way. Martial arts is the exact opposite of that. Like, it's not about protecting your feelings. You know what I mean? It's not about making sure you're comfortable and you're okay and everything is how you want it to be. It's literally the exact opposite of that. It's about getting you out of your comfort zone. It's about putting you in the exact spot where we know you're not good at and forcing you to have to grow. And so, it's like I said, I've always just been drawn to those spaces and things that force you to have to deal with yourself, look at yourself, evaluate yourself, and see yourself truly for who you are and not who you portray yourself to be, who you want others to see you as, who you think you are. No, this is who and what you actually are right now in this moment. And there's no hiding in martial arts.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you said you went in initially when you started martial arts, giving yourself like a year to take it all in, try and just grasp as much as you possibly can. You started eventually competing in BJJ tournaments. I would assume with just being in the Lubbock area, as we know in West Texas in general, it's not like they have fighting or competition opportunities every weekend. And so at that point, once you were merging into getting comfortable and kind of learning what this martial arts gig was all about, did you just wait for certain opportunities to arise, whether it was, tournaments coming in or the coaches saying, hey, we have this competition coming up, and kind of just pushing you to compete? Yeah. Or how did that eventually start becoming your routine once you started getting into competition mindset?
Well, it comes fast, especially once you verbally, openly say, I want to fight. Because when you say that and you walk into a gym where there are other people who already fight, those people take that personally, rightfully so, because there's a badge of honor that comes with that. everybody can't do this. And
It's
so
almost like a prove it.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so even more so for me, because it's for a lot of people in a lot of ways, it's an ego thing. It's a macho. You want to fight? Okay, let's see. And then for me being who I was coming in, there was that much more pressure and I would say a target on my back because oh, you're the athletic you're the athlete. So because of other guys, because it wasn't particular to different breed, but every gym across the world, the athletic, strong, fast, big, whatever guy walks in and feels like or thinks because he's big, strong, athletic, he can fight. And that isn't how I specifically saw it, but that's the general perception and understanding is, well, I'm big, I'm fast, I'm strong, so I can fight.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what that means. And so I knew that coming in. I respected that coming in, but most don't. And so me coming in and saying it, I automatically got that tag of the guy that you think because you're big and you're fast and you're strong, you can fight. And it wasn't that I thought that, but that's what I got tagged with just off of my initial me being who I was.
Sure.
And so I had to deal with that. I had to, like you said, prove it because so many before have come here and said they wanted to fight. And after the first day of sparring, they don't want to fight no more. So that was an experience in itself. And that was something, again, that drew me in because I personally like that doubt. I'm familiar with that doubt. I've always been present in that doubt. Everything I've ever achieved in my life, I wasn't supposed to do. I wasn't supposed to be able to accomplish. You telling me, oh, you want to do that? Prove it. Just give me some time.
Yeah.
Like that's all it's gonna take. And sure enough, that's how it played out.
Were there any moments early on in your training that were humbling to you? I mean, that stuck out to you, whether it be before you even started competing or as you merged into a couple of your first competitions that kind of hit you in the face maybe a little bit? Like, oh, okay.
I would say, yeah. I mean, for sure, humbling, but I've always tried to maintain a humble approach to begin with, if that makes sense. So, though I'm a competitor, though you have to have, that initial confidence, that initial way and energy about you, I've still always at the same time tried to keep an even medium of, though I'm saying this is what I want to do and this is how I plan to do it, I also understand there's work that comes with that and there's time. I have to pay my dues to that. I can't just show up and be enough. And so in the training sessions, in the sparring sessions, in the early years of competitions, and even still now, because that never goes away. Like, there's always a better guy. There's always a better, more competitive space. You know what I mean? It's like no matter how high of a level you think you at, there's always a higher level. And so I remain in a humble space. I remain and constantly remind myself that no matter how good you think you are, you can still be better. You can still sharpen and continue to perfect and just more than anything, remain a student.
Yeah.
Is what I try to always communicate, not just to myself, but even to people that I train now. Never feel like you bigger than what you really are. And honestly, like I said, in martial arts, you don't get the opportunity often to be delusional for an extended period of time.
Yeah.
You're going to get brought to reality and put into perspective where you're at in all of it very quick. So yeah, it's martial arts period is humbling.
Yeah.
And
looking back, do you feel like you had to unlearn certain parts of either the football mentality or training to kind of really embrace the fight game?
Yeah. No, you definitely have to.
What were some of those things that you had to kind of shut off or change?
Well, like, okay, for training example, I used to lift a lot of weights. Not good for fighting. Lifting weights is good. Weight training is good, but there's a very particular approach you have to take for it to be applicable and effective to martial arts versus football style or just regular everyday strength and conditioning style training. Mixed martial arts training is more about functional movement, mobility, being able to be strong fluently while making various mechanics and being in various positions versus just being strong in one specific spot. And so that was something I had to really get acclimated to, balance footwork, which that I had from football and being a running back and doing ladder drills and column drills and all that kind of stuff was something I picked up. Dance, that's the side of the game that I got fairly quick because of my background. But yeah, I would say weightlifting and just relying on brute strength is something that I had to transition and really get a different understanding of, because in football, that's what it's about, brute strength. The stronger guy always wins in football. You know what I mean? So transitioning to martial arts, that's not the case. The stronger guy doesn't always win. Almost always doesn't win. It's not about just being able to be stronger in this one direction and in this one spot, because that can easily be redirected to where now you're in the bad spot because you thought you could just be stronger. So yeah, strength training and just being strong to be strong is what I would say I had to adjust the most in.
What's your philosophy now when it comes to diet, recovery, the whole shebang, keeping your body in peak condition for both fighting and fatherhood? Because you're not alone in all this. And so how are you finding a balance? Because your work ethic is very clear. That's evident in a strength of yours. But we know it's not always about like putting your nose down and grinding towards everything. You have to know when to kind of pull back.
Yeah.
So how are you at this process now? Because I'm assuming you're at more of a fine-tuning stage after all these years.
Yeah. No, what it looks like now is definitely way, way, way different than what it looked like year 1, year 2, year 3. Those years were working to be able to work how I needed to work. Was the first 3 to 4 years was just me being acclimated to that type of training, the ins and outs of it. And like you said, aligning that with my personal life of being a dad, being a husband, working full time, and, just dealing with life outside of martial arts. And so what I would also like to say to that is there's no one size fit all for that. That process, that mechanism, those moving parts look different, and for the best outcome are gonna be different for every competitor and every fighter. What my process looks like for me to perform at my best is not what your process is gonna look like or his process. And that's where I feel like people go wrong, is people try to make it that or try to take that from somebody else and apply it to themselves, thinking that they're going to get the same outcome. And that's not how it works. It's truly a space where you have to do the work to find what works best for you. And yeah, don't get me wrong. You have your coaches, you have, your observational things to look at and take heed to that you can apply that are going to help. But ultimately, it's on you to figure out what diet works best for you to be able to cut weight how you need to cut weight and feel the best that you could possibly feel. Like that's different for everybody.
Right.
And so it's a thing that you truly just have to go through for yourself.
Yeah. Yep. Can you talk to me a little bit about, so you had this idea, and I know it was a goal. It was goal driven. It felt right to you, but you kind of got presented with the prove it now. And so you ultimately have to get to a point of, okay, yeah, I'm ready. I'm going to go out there and compete. So can you tell me a little bit about your experience when you first competed in a BJJ tournament versus when you first competed at your first amateur MMA bout? And
Mm-hmm.
were both of those affirming to you? Like, okay, yep, I'm going in
Mm-hmm.
the right direction. Or just kind of tell me where your mindset and how that experience was.
Well, for the grappling tournament, of course, not as much nerves, not as much pressure, not
Why
as
is that
much
to
because the
you?
ramifications are different. The possible outcomes are different. At a jiu-jitsu tournament, the worst thing that's gonna happen to me is I gotta tap. Or if I don't tap, yeah, I could get something broken. Or, there's always the chance of the freak accident where you get some type of injury or something. But overall, from a jiu-jitsu tournament compared to an MMA fight, there's a lot less likely chance of me getting hurt here than I am there. So that brings the nerves down quite a bit. And then from your everyday initial training, you understand the difference in just me going and competing and grappling versus me going and fighting in an MMA fight. It's You just know the
Yeah,
difference because when I roll, that's not the same as when I do cage rounds and spar. It's just not the same.
exactly.
So yeah, competing in jiu-jitsu for the first time I saw success. I made podium a few times, took first place. Yeah, and those competitions in those years, I podiumed every tournament I went to. And at that time I was doing gi and no gi as a white belt.
Mhm.
And so saw success in that. And
I
like you
will say
said,
something about those tournaments too. And I
mm,
know BJJ now is growing and there's more of these individual matchup bouts. And I know there were
yeah,
back then.
yeah,
I have not been exposed to those. We obviously see that they're coming on TV now and they're more
mm-hmm,
accessible in some of these bigger areas. But there's still a lot of tournaments now. When you go to BJJ tournaments, it does remind me of high school wrestling. It's like
mm-hmm,
one massive mat. The environment's kind of chaotic, but chill at the
yeah,
same time. There's camaraderie. Everybody's kind of doing their own thing. So I could see how it elevates some people's nerves, but it also probably really brings people down and being like, this is just, it's whatever. We're
yeah,
all getting together and we're going to try and see where we're at competitively.
mm-hmm,
And so I do agree with that. And then, so like, I just keep thinking from like an environmental standpoint, because then you
yeah,
switch to do MMA bouts. It's not like you go into a gym and then there's all these like, here's 6 cages and there's MMA fights
yeah,
going on all around us. It's not like that. It's very, everything is zoomed in on you.
you, yeah,
And so there's already this kind of heightened level of expectation or
mm,
nerves, I guess. And so tell me
yeah,
about that switch.
yeah. And like you said, in comparison of the two, formatting wise, it would be a lot harder to format an MMA tournament than it would a jiu-jitsu tournament because
The damage.
yeah, the damage is a lot more significant. So
Mm-hmm.
trying to fight multiple MMA fights in one day without protective gear on is gonna be tough sledding.
Right.
So, but yeah, as far as the difference, I mean, for a fighter going to a jiu-jitsu tournament, there's just that in itself. You're a lot more relaxed and in that experience because even before getting to the point of having my first actual sanctioned amateur fight, I've done round after round after round of cage rounds in the gym. And I would say most fighters would agree. You have harder rounds in the gym than if you're training right, you have harder rounds in the gym than you do on fight night. Now, yeah, on fight night, we don't got headgear on, we don't got shin guards on, we don't got puffies on. But it's just you and that one opponent in fight night. In
Mm-hmm.
the gym, you're getting Shark Tank. You're getting put in bad positions intentionally and starting from that spot. Like you're working from a losing aspect intentionally. And so after experiencing that in the gym, it's formatted in a way, and if you're training right and you're at good gyms, it's going to be formatted in a way where it's the hardest at the gym. I'm not going to see anything or deal with anything more challenging outside of what I experienced at the gym.
Mm-hmm.
So going to compete from that angle and that perspective, that's when it's time to have fun. That's when it's time to enjoy yourself. That's when it's time to reap the fruits of your labor and perform. Like I
Yeah.
said, enjoy it, have fun. And
Did you
so,
feel like a sense of relief after your first fight? Or
uh,
what was your initial like mood or emotion after that first one? Because I feel like that is still, I'm sure, not just obviously a test to everybody
mhm,
else around you to prove it to them, but also to yourself of, okay, how do I
yeah,
feel after this first experience? And am I going to keep going?
yeah, no, absolutely. My first fight, my first opponent was 2-3. And obviously I'm making my debut. So he had already had 5 fights and had experience, and ended up coming out with that decision. I actually had the stoppage, but it got called a nut shot instead of a liver shot, which is what it actually was. And so, yeah, I came out of that fight feeling great, feeling good, and just having that confirmation of like, no, I'm where I'm supposed to be, and I'm doing the right things to prepare and be competitive. And I felt for the first time in a long time that component of just being able to perform, being able to display and simultaneously express myself, and
How did you
just
decide, Rob? So you had your first amateur fight and then you go through your amateur years. When did you ultimately know, okay, I'm ready to make that shift to pro? Because obviously that takes some experience. And so I know
mhm,
when you're first starting out, you're just trying to get on cards, you're trying to get that exposure and get back in the cage so you can continue to build your skill and your
yeah.
record. But did you have kind of a set game plan or?
Well, upfront initially more than anything is based off of your output. Like what is the outcomes? Like what is it looking like? What are you doing out there when you go to fight?
Mm-hmm.
And from that point, there's a lot of variables that play into it. For me, like I said, I started at 25. So I don't got all day, you know what I'm saying,
Mm-hmm.
to do this. Like I gotta get to it if this is what I'm claiming I want, because that's the other aspect or component as well. Because everybody's relationship with martial arts is different based off of how you got brought into it. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean?
Yeah.
So if you were raised to do it versus you chose to do it, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
everybody's approach and initial relationship with it is different. So for me, it wasn't something that chose me. I chose to come to the gym. I chose to fight. I chose to do what I'm doing. There's that much more pressure because it's like nobody asked you to do this. Nobody told you or signaled you that this was the thing for you to do.
Right.
You came in here and said you wanted to do this. So in that, you go through and deal with that coming from that angle, and that kind of gives you your progressional timeline of the markers you need to hit and when you need to be hitting them for what you're claiming you want to be a possibility. Because realistically, as a fighter, you have a window of time that you have a legitimate chance of making that dream a reality.
Yeah.
And so if you're honest, realistic, actually have real intentions of doing it, you're not naive or stupid to that or neglecting that. It's like, no, by this time I gotta hit this marker. I gotta be at this level.
Mm-hmm.
And so going through my amateur career, that was the work, is like getting to a level and displaying a level of dominance or output. And most guys, it's once you win a couple belts as an amateur, you start to go pro. I got that after winning, losing, and then eventually going on a 4-fight win streak to end my amateur career. I got to that point to where it's like, okay, at this point where I'm at now, it doesn't make sense for me to keep fighting amateur unless I'm fighting for a belt. And so I fight again. And at this point, I'm on a 4-fight win streak. My last amateur fight was a 30-second knockout. And so it's like, okay, what are we doing at this point? I'm 7-5. I have more amateur fights than most. If I'm not fighting for a belt, I'm going pro. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? And at that time in that space, fighting for the belt was all like other people were already chosen and lined up for that. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like, do I sit here and wait to fight for a belt or campaign for the opportunity to fight for a belt or go pro
Right.
and continue to go down this path and pursue what I'm pursuing? And so
So how,
that was the road that I was sitting at in making that decision.
so how does that work, Rod? So then when you are ready, let's say, do you talk to your coaches and then like you have to get connected with a
Well,
promotion and then there has to obviously then be a
for
competitor
pro,
in the yeah.
so for it's honestly no different than amateur. The only difference is really the title. It's like,
You clarify that I'm now
yeah,
fighting
yeah.
professionally.
You clarify that you're fighting professionally. You now you sign contracts even when you're amateur. And some promotions you even get paid as an amateur. It just depends on the promotion. But
Okay.
for sure, when you go pro, you're gonna sign a contract for X amount of money to execute whatever is within that contract for however many rounds, for however many minutes against whoever, you know what I mean, what all
Sure.
the stipulations of the contract are. But that's really the only difference. Because you've already fought as an amateur more times than none, you're going and fighting pro for the same promotions that you fought as an amateur for.
That makes
So
sense.
there's no real difference other than the level and the fact that now you're on contract to be paid and also on contract to fulfill an obligation of what's in the contract as far as making weight, all that other stuff. And
Right.
but yeah, as far as making the decision itself, it's a decision that most of the time the coach is gonna make before the fighter.
Yeah.
Or in combination, the fighter and the coach sit down and have a conversation and evaluate what's best. And so, yeah, for me and my journey, like I said, I was on a 4-fight win streak, approaching 30. So it's like, yeah, it's time. You know what I mean? I don't, like I
Mhm.
said, I don't have all day. So I gotta get to it while I have the opportunity to get to it. And so,
Mhm.
yeah, that was what it was for me in my journey and my timeline. There's no one size fit all. It's different for
Were you
everybody.
were your coaches pretty aware of like your game plan? Did you have to broach this like, "Hey, I think I'm ready to go," or were they just kind of waiting for you? Did they say, "Hey, I think your next fight you should go pro"? How did that work with being in
It was
collaboration with them?
it was kind of simultaneous. They knew that was what I was getting at, was wanting to go pro. But on the other end of that, as a coach, which is exactly what they should have did, and any coach should do, is like, okay, you want to go pro, show 'em.
Mm,
And so for my particular coaches and what that build up was and looked like was just that. And it was leading up to that last amateur fight that I had, where it was like, okay, I know you want to go pro. Show me that you need and should be pro.
yeah.
And so I'll go out and I get a 30-second knockout.
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, well, here we go.
And for our listeners, for people that don't know you, this
And
wasn't all done in Lubbock. So you
dude,
started training in Lubbock. Can you explain a little bit on your growth within gyms and as you guys moved to
and,
DFW area? Because that makes a big difference too, as you change coaches, you
oh
change
yeah.
gym environments and ultimately training styles. But it seems like it didn't slow you down and kind of only helped you in your path to where you are today. But can you kind of explain just so our listeners can track where you're
Yeah,
at this point?
to give the timeline, so I walk in a different breed in June of 2020. Biggest fighter at that gym at that time, Jonathan Martinez, who is currently still in the UFC, still in the West Texas area, has his own gym now, is the biggest fighter there. Few other pros underneath him, amateurs underneath him. I come there, I train under Danny Perez, Jason, Gabe, and get going there. I'm there for a year. In that year, actually become a part of the MMA program, MMA team, start sparring, start taking the steps of actually being a fighter versus just training, and train there for a year. moving and leaving Lubbock was always the plan. That was always going to happen. I didn't initially plan on going back to Lubbock after college. In my head and in my world, after I graduated, I was going to wherever I was going to be playing football at. So coming back to Lubbock only happened because of the circumstances of me having a kid and just what the situation was that made sense. Like, all right, you about to have a baby, you got to provide, you got to do X, Y, and Z. And so home was the best and what made the most sense place to do that at the time. And so into where I was outside of the gym in life, me, my other half, my child, for us, moving was already the plan outside of what I did in mixed martial arts. And so simultaneously in martial arts at that particular gym, a lot of things going on that I wasn't necessarily a fan of. And I could just kind of start to tell that things were, for that time and that space, kind of going south. And fight-wise, I got matched up at least 3 to 4 times by that time, and all had fell through. And so I was frustrated with that and went through that process of being there for a year. And then it's like, all right, outside of here, opportunity-wise for my family, I know me moving is going to provide us things that we're not going to be able to accomplish here. Because by the end, I had already finished my degree and all of that as well. So pursuing things outside of martial arts was just as much of a factor in me moving as pursuing martial arts itself.
Mm-hmm.
And I just knew overall, me moving to DFW, I was going to have more opportunity in every aspect of life, martial arts and in my personal life with my family and everything we wanted for our family. My brother, my second oldest brother already lived here. My wife's older sister already lived here. So we were already familiar with the area, already knew the area, already came here for years. And so made the move here in April of 2021. BJ, a fighter at Different Breed, fought a fighter from the gym that I moved to. And so in them fighting, when I moved here, out of his recommendation of like, hey, I fought so-and-so, and he trains at this gym, you should go check it out, once you get down there. And that's what landed me where I was at Genesis when I first got here with Bert, Eric Lincoln, Mark De La Rosa, Kendrick Williams. Kendrick was actually the first coach I met face-to-face in person moving here. And then Eric Lincoln, and then Albert, and then Mark. And yeah, so moved here April of 2021, and then made my amateur debut August of 21. And like I said, that was after already having, at that point, I think I had like 6 fights fall through that didn't stick, including one fight fall through once I moved down here. Finally got that first fight in August of 21 for Peak. And after that, it was just fight after fight after fight. Like I consistently was able to get booked and stay active. And yeah, it happened fairly quick after that as far as the pickup of fighting. But at the same time, behind the scenes, a lot of struggle in those early years of us moving here, because we moved. This is all while COVID is going on, and like any move, you move to a new city and you trying to navigate what all comes with that. Even though you're familiar, it's different. It's different coming to visit versus you live here now. You know what I mean? And I was a finance agent at New York Life at the time, living in Lubbock, and in that particular field, you eat what you kill. It's a commission-based job. So your book of business determines how much money you make. Well, I know way more people in Lubbock than I know moving to DFW. So moving here financially, that was a big transition I had to make, because now I'm starting from scratch, generating business and having to try to prioritize my time in pursuing leads and still train and be a fighter and be a dad, and you know what I'm saying, do life. So very quickly had to leave that position with them. And from that point, it was just about having a job that was acclimated to me being able to train when I needed to train, which wasn't always the best case scenario and led me for like 2.5 years working nights. And yeah, there was a window for about 1.5 years to almost 2 years where I was just taking naps. Like there was no full night of sleep. In that time frame, I didn't even sleep in the bed. I slept on the couch because that's how little time I had before I had to be back up to be somewhere. In that window of time, I actually got into bed maybe 2 days a week. And this is fighting. Like this is while I'm fighting.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, those first 2 years being here, moving in April of 21, all the way up until November of 23 was rough.
Yeah. Because really, I mean, it doesn't matter how much work you put in the gym, strength training, conditioning, diet, sleep is essential. And
Yeah.
so I'm sure no matter if you're at your peak in all of those other areas, your body's going to
Wait,
feel that.
that's the catch. It's impossible to be at your peak in those. If
You're not
like
going to sleep.
your everyday life has to be acclimated and aligned with your life as a fighter. And until it is, your results are going to be a fraction of what they could be. And so that's what at one point me being 3-5 was about. Is like I'm driving to weight cut after getting off work at 3 a.m. in the morning. You know what I mean? I'm working because I work warehouse. So that's the thing too. I'm working a job that requires me to do manual labor all day. I'm on my feet literally all day. So on my feet all day, cutting weight and getting off, like I said, in the middle of the night, coming home, making sure I'm on weight, sleeping for maybe 2 hours, and then I'm up at 8 a.m. to get on the road to drive to weight cut. And then that night is the first night all week I'm getting a actual full night of sleep. But that night, every fighter knows you never get a full night of sleep right the night after weigh-ins. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like you rehydrating back up, you just getting food back in your body, cramping, you going through all of that. You know what I mean? So was going to the cage definitely not at my best. And I honestly look back on that 2 years and I don't know how I did it. Like
Yeah.
I
Well,
don't
and
I
I
don't know
think
how I did it.
I think about that too, Rod, because there's that level of, if you were a single guy living at home by yourself, grinding that out, but you had other complexities of it too with your
Yeah.
family. And so
Yeah.
let's kind of talk about that aspect. So you and Carmen, your wife, now met in high school.
Yeah.
Can you just tell me a little bit about your story and how your relationship has evolved through high school into adulthood, especially as your careers and goals have ultimately started to take shape and as you continue to pursue them individually and as a couple?
Yeah. So we met senior year high. Well, I knew her before senior year high school, but we like actually started dealing with each other senior year high school. Met in track and started dating senior year high school. Initially, honestly, started out as something that was just like, we gonna do this till the end of senior year and then we gonna go our separate ways because she already knew I was leaving for college. And so yeah, it was like, I'm not gonna be here after graduation. So let's go to prom. Let's have fun, pretty much. Well, it comes time for me to leave and we're both kind of like, I'm not ready for this to be over. And so we do the long distance thing for all the way up until I get a young couple. We hit some turbulence. Junior year of college, we split, and we split fall semester of my junior year. And all the way up until that summer, we were like completely separated. Didn't talk, didn't see each other, like nothing. Got back home for summer break, before going into my senior year. started talking again, but wasn't like back in a like committed actual relationship, was just back on speaking terms pretty much. She went on to come to, my football games and stuff that season, my senior year. And then, like I said, by my last game in November of my senior year, she got pregnant with my oldest, and then that's when I went back home. And so uh from there, I was at home for almost 4 years from college, from 2016 to 21. And then we moved here to DFW, got married here in March of 22. And yeah, um a lot of highs and lows. A lot of turbulence, a lot of hard days, a lot of good days. And yeah, that's my best friend. That's my number one fan. That's my everything. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm not where I'm at without that person. And I genuinely appreciate and value what we have, because she was able and is able to know me and see me from scratch. Like
Mm-hmm.
when we initially, like from day one, I was working at McDonald's, you know what I mean, as a 16-year-old in high school. And so know me from then to now as a dad, professional fighter, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera,
Mm-hmm.
she has a perspective and a view of me that nobody else can have, because she was there for all of that. She's seen all of that, and vice versa. You know what I mean? I seen all of who she developed to become and be. So yeah, man.
What's been the most challenging part of building your family while chasing a professional fighting career, and how have you guys kind of overcome that together?
That particular aspect has obviously, of course, hasn't always been easy, but that was always understood, because like I said, when we started talking, I was going to the NFL. So me being a competitive athlete, and that being like the dynamic of our relationship, was always what it was going to be.
Right. It
You
wasn't
know what I mean?
foreign.
Yeah, like that was understood from day one, of like, if you're dealing with me, if you plan on being with me, this is what it's gonna look like. You know what I mean? And I said that up front, not from a selfish place, but from a this is who you getting place.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like this is who I was and what I was pursuing prior to us being what we are. You know what I mean? And there was never any kickback or resistance from her in that. Like, she's always supported. She's always been a part of me doing that. Now, obviously, in the earlier years of me being in college and all of that kind of stuff, yeah, we dealt with what we dealt with and went through what we went through. Back then, just being young, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Just going through what you go through at that age
Right.
under those circumstances.
Yeah.
But we really, really, really locked in when us having a child together became, you know, our new norm.
Yeah.
And from
Yeah.
that point on, like, don't get me wrong, it ain't been sunshine and rainbows.
Yeah.
Still been a lot of hard days, a lot of tough days. But as far as just our initial bond, connection, understanding of the goal and what we trying to do and where we're trying to go, always been on the same page, always had the same outlook and understanding of where this is going and what we doing. And
Yeah.
so, but
And
yeah.
now you have two beautiful
Mm-hmm.
girls. So what
Yep.
are some of the values and lessons that you continue to try and instill in them, both from your own life and as you continue to pursue your
Yeah.
own professional goals?
More than anything, before I open my mouth to say what they should be doing, I work to be what they should be doing.
Mm.
Because as a kid myself, I never listened to the adults that told me to do something but weren't doing it themselves. Because as a kid, you have that natural combative nature anyway. You know what I mean? You don't want to listen. You don't want to do what you're being yelled at to do. So the only time it makes sense for me to do what you're telling me to do is if you're doing it.
Yeah, seeing it day in and day out.
Yeah. So I just try to be that example more than anything. And I'm not ever going to tell you to do something that I'm not actively doing every day and putting in front of you and showing you every day. And in my pursuit of my personal, things that I want, I still double down on that and try to relay that message that whatever it is that you want to do, it starts with the work. It starts with your faith in God. It starts with, you know, these particular components. And without those particular components, you don't got a shot. It's not gonna happen. There's no chance that that's gonna play out to be what you want it to be. And yeah, just setting that example for them and being the person that my dad was in a lot of ways, and also trying to be who he wasn't that I wanted him to be. And of course, that's never perfect. That's never me being everything all the time because I can't. You know what I
Right.
mean? I'm going to have to select and pick when and where and how and what I'm going to have to sacrifice in specific spots because I can only be so much in so many places at so many times. And so we navigate that between me and my wife, and I can't speak enough about how much of a support system she provides to our household and even outside of her, my extended family with my mom and my dad and my brothers and her sister. And, family is a very important component in our infrastructure and should be in everybody's. But there's a saying that I first heard from Kanye West that really, really stuck with me. But he said, family is the key to mental health. And when he said it, it immediately hit home for me because it was the key to me being who I am and having the soundness that people would say I had. It's not me just being this great guy that I got it all figured out and got all the answers because I don't. But for what I have done and for what I have accomplished, it's all attributed to the examples that I had from the four core people I saw growing up in my mom, my dad, and my two brothers. And the body of work that they did and gave me to build off of. And
What do you think the secret is, if there is, I don't know if secret's the right term, but to keeping those relationships strong between your wife, your daughters, your family, maybe some of your close friends?
Communication is the key to relationships in all aspects. You have to be able to have real conversations. You have to be able to tell each other things without a filter. You have to be able to be honest with each other. I have to be able to tell you that, hey, I don't like that you did this, and this, and vice versa. I have to be able to receive you telling me what you didn't like. You know what I mean? And just that transparency. And this is something, again, that I learned from my mom and my dad, who have been married longer than I've been alive. Having, again, that example goes the longest way because not that they were perfect, but some way, somehow, they figured out how to stay together. And in me growing up and seeing that was what was always ultimately did it. And it's not that they were great at communicating, but, and then it, in a in the dynamic of a husband and a wife, it's just making the choice that no matter what the circumstances are, I'm not quitting. I'm not, like, leaving is never an option. And that's a component that I really saw with my mom and dad is like, I don't care how bad of a day it's been or how in opposite directions we are of each other. leaving isn't an option. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we're going to, at some point, some way, somehow, figure out a way to resolve and move forward from
Yeah.
whatever the circumstances and situations are. And I feel like that's a component that's lost in a lot of people's relationships, friendships,
And
family members, whatever.
I can say too, Rod, I mean, even just from my perspective, watching yours and Gavin's friendship evolve over the
Hmm.
years has been such a cool thing. Really, it has. It's been a blessing, not only for him, but, in my life as well. I think there's
Hmm.
something so reassuring to see somebody that you're with and you're married to, and it's warming to know he's surrounded by good people. And that's ultimately all that
Yeah.
I want. And people that will lift him up and also make him a better person.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I don't know. I just think, I think there's obviously a different level of complexity that goes
Hmm.
into relationships, whether it's from a family dynamic, from a
Oh, for sure.
relationship standpoint. And then I just think from a friendship standpoint. And so, what do you think it is that's missing in terms of when it comes to like male friendships? Do you think it boils down to communication again?
Man, I could talk about that for hours. And I wouldn't even apply it to just that particular dynamic of a relationship because the components are the same across the board.
Mm-hmm.
Communication being one. But for men particularly, it's it's the ability to, again, like I said, one, be honest with each other,
It
to
almost
be
seems
able,
like the challenge of vulnerability.
yeah, but to be able to be who you actually are. We from just a societal standpoint, we live in very, very weird times right now with social media and metaverses and these spaces where you can create a perception of yourself that you don't actually have to in real time be.
Right.
There's a lot of people are losing themselves in that. And because of that, they bring that to their real life, everyday relationships to where, and it's crazy because me and him was talking about this last night, that if me and you are friends, that should happen only organically. But I feel like a lot of people's relationships play out to what they end up playing out to, which is something negative because of how they start.
Hmm.
People don't start relationships organically. They start relationships transactionally and with agendas. So I'm friends with you because in my mind, I feel like at some point I'm going to be able to get something from you
Sure, that makes sense.
versus me being friends with you because we have and are like-minded and have just a natural initial chemistry with each other.
Right.
And everything, so much so now, is transactional because
Mm-hmm.
we live in a have it your way society. Everything is at the click of a button. Everything is automated. Everything is what you want right now. And so people start to deal with people like that, to where it's like, if you're not giving me what I want when I want it, you're useless to me. Whether you're a
Right.
friend, you're my partner intimately, you're a family member, whoever, your only value to me is in you doing and being who I want you to be. And if you're not serving in that space in that way, how I see fit at the time that I see fit, I don't have a purpose for you being in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's so many people's approach to
Sure.
relationships across the board. And when you handle people like that, you simultaneously make them handle you like that.
Sure.
Because if it's just about me being beneficial to you, well, how are you beneficial to me?
Right.
And that's what you see across the board in a lot of people's conversation is just that. It's
Mm-hmm.
how this benefits me. And don't get me wrong, there should be benefit to you having a relationship with someone. But that shouldn't be what your
Drives
purpose.
it.
Yeah,
Right. Right. Right.
exactly.
Right. Yeah, that makes complete sense. Not even starting out with any level of authenticity and then only being about kind of molding into the type of person that you might be around at that time, just to simply
Exactly.
either avoid judgment or drama or feeling left out,
hmm
which
And I
makes it
think,
then just confusing in the first place.
yeah, for relationships to be healthy, you have to go through things with people. You have to experience things with people in a way that from that experience, y'all have something
Right.
now
Something
because
to
of,
reflect on,
yeah,
something to share.
because of
Mhm.
that experience.
Right.
But that's the problem with a lot of people in relationships, despite what type of relationship it is the second we go through something that I don't like, I'm gone. I'm jumping
Mhm.
ship. I'm out. Well, how do we ever actually mean something to each other then if we don't ever go through anything
Right.
and come out on the other side of it? And that don't necessarily mean me and you going through something that was you doing me wrong or me doing you wrong. But that could just mean us both going through hard times and not dropping out because
Right.
we going through hard times. So that could mean me and you friends and your dad passes away. Okay, I know that's going to affect you a certain way. I know you going or I don't know. I don't know how that's gonna manifest into what your everyday actions look like because that's a search of circumstance and situation you've never been in.
Mhm.
So you're organically responding to that. But if my relationship with you is about me and all that I care about and how you serve me and you're going through that, when you going through that, you're not giving me what I was getting from you because you going through what you going through.
Sure.
So now I fall back. Now I act different, or now I say you're acting different and you're not who you were and
Mhm.
that type of thing versus me saying, nah, man, you going through something. You going through a real situation right now and
Sure.
seeing that and being there for you.
Like meeting people where they're at and honestly
Yeah,
being able to like empathize with them and
exactly.
yeah. And obviously just as we grow too, being okay with people changing
Yep.
in certain ways and being able to take it at
Not even just being okay with people changing, but expecting,
yeah.
promoting, pushing people to change.
Mhm.
Those are the relationships, and that's a dynamic in that as well of healthy relationships is the accountability piece. Am I telling you when you fucking up?
Right.
Or am I just saying, oh, you all right? Whoever else is dealing with you should accept you just the way you are.
Mhm.
That's not me caring about you. That's not me really loving you.
Mhm.
Is looking at you at a lesser version of yourself, knowing you could be more and not pushing you to be more.
Right.
Me loving you is me pushing you to be more than what you currently are.
Right.
And that's a problem that a lot of people get to in relationships too, is being on one side or the other of that. And you telling me that I need to do this, and this better, and me taking that as an attack rather than taking that as you loving me and wanting the best for me.
Right.
But most people take that as an attack. They take that as disrespect. They take that as you talking about them rather than promoting growth in them.
Right.
And that's why a lot of relationships fall out, because if I can't tell you, hey, you should probably do that better than that. And if you can't tell me that, are we really like that? Are we really friends? Are we really locked in? Because if I can't tell you that, if we can't have those type of conversations, this isn't real. This isn't genuine. This isn't
Mhm.
going to lead to the best possible outcome because we don't have that dynamic. And it just becomes about, like I said, us celebrating each other's failure. Because I know you could be more and you know I could be more, but ain't neither one of us going for it. And so we just sit here and play this game with each other
Mhm.
of being less than. And that's a lot of people's relationship.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Very well said. Very well said. I like it. We're going to kind of move forward, Rod. And so, as we start wrapping up, which I can't believe we're already towards the end of 2025 and moving into 2026. And so we start thinking about kicking off the new year. Well, I guess let's first look back at what's gone on this year. So what's a lesson or lessons from this past year that carry forward with you as you move into 2026?
Man, a lot of growth this year. This is like I said, from those early years, and just working to be able to do the work that I needed to do to be who I needed to be, is now really starting to come forward and play out and manifest in this time and space. And this year, my work life, gym, training, like all of that balance is a whole lot better now. And the systems and functioning of the systems, everything is on the same accord now. And this is my first year as a martial artist with that being the case, of just being able to train at the times that I need to train, being able to be where I need to be at the times that I need to be there, but also being able to maintain who I need to be as a dad, who I need to be as a husband, who I need to be as a provider.
Feeling more in sync.
Yeah, it just all making sense and working with each other rather than against each other.
Yeah.
And so that's what this year was, on a big point of just being able to navigate that space that way.
Yeah, it's getting
And,
evened out a little bit, it sounds like.
Yeah. And so now that that's the case, just being able to fine tune, being able to really dive into the details, inside the details, and dealing with all of that as a fighter and outside of being a fighter, as a father, as a husband, as a brother, a son, everything that I am.
Do you believe in New Year's resolutions?
I do not. I believe change is now. I believe change is something that, if it's genuine, happens the moment you realize it needs to happen. So if I know I need to do this different, I'm not going to wait till said date to do it different. Because if I'm doing that, I'm not really going to do that. You know what I mean? Real change happens the moment it's realized that it needs to happen. That's when it's genuine. That's when it's going to stick, so to speak, versus that's why New Year's resolutions are New Year's resolutions and play out the way New Year's resolutions play out. That's the whole, the term in itself speaks to what that is and how that is. So no, I don't.
I feel like you kind of answered this already, but when it comes to setting goals, do you have a specific process that you follow, or is it more about like intuition and mindset?
Intuition, mindset, alignment with what's around you, and service. Service is where I stay, or try to stay, rooted in. As much as it would look like what I do is for me, which to an extent it is, because it is me expressing myself. It is me having an outlet to deal with the things that bother me in life. It is all of that. And the approach that I have in it is from a service standpoint. I do what I do to be able to serve those around me in more ways than one. So I feel like for anybody, from a goals standpoint, your goal should be tied to service. And what I mean by service is, how are you serving your everyday interactions with the people that you, no matter who it is, your work should be somewhere tied and tangled in that space, because from birth to death, that's all your life is really gonna mean or be tallied up as when it's all said and done. That's all you're going to or not going to be remembered for, is the effect you had on others. And that effect is determined by whether or not you're willing to service others, or is it just about you being served?
Yeah.
And so my goals have always been in, one, me not looking back and having regret, and two, me looking back and being able to say what I did positively affected somebody else. Those two components are what I...
driving factors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what my goals are rooted in. And so me being a fighter, is not for me to go out and knock people out and say, hey, look at me. It's symbolic of a much, much deeper aspect and concept of life, that no matter what it is you're going through, no matter where you are in the process, it should always be about you pursuing the better version of you.
I love it.
And chasing the better version of you. So me fighting is just me doing that, and my example of that, of me pursuing my better me. And in me doing that, hoping those watching will say or see that in all of it, I see his progression. I see his growth, not as a fighter, as a man. And from that, I take inspiration, I take motivation, I take an example that that's what it's about. That's what life is about, because that's ultimately what I deem important. Like I said, from birth to death is what did it look like? You know what I mean? What did you really do? Not for self, but for others.
Yeah. I love it, Rod. So if we think about 2025, are you able to sum it up into a phrase, a motto? How could you simplify what 2025 gave to you? And if you could explain your mindset going into 2026, what would it be? Or expectations?
Yeah, to double down on that, to double down on this year, to double down on the concept of growth, to double down on the concept of gratitude. That's another thing that I really, really made a point to plant myself in, is from the time I wake up to the time I go back to sleep, just being thankful, being appreciative of the fact that I get to be a husband, that I get to be a father, that I get to fight, that I get to do the things that I wake up and do every day, that I get to go to work and work my job. I get to make a pay. Like, being thankful for the simplest thing, for just being able to get out of bed without assistance, without help. That is one thing I want to speak to in my lifetime that I took the most from my senior year, graduating my senior year of high school, all the way until I started working road construction. I worked for a place called Daybreak, and I worked as a residential staff for special needs individuals. These are special needs both mentally and physically. And the homes I worked on were all male homes by rule set. So yeah, I changed diapers, I gave showers, I fed them, I clothed them, like top to bottom. And like I said, I did that in a window of time where I'm 18, 19, 20 years old, and these men are 30, 40, 50, 60. You know what I mean? Older. And then some of on the mental side were in their 20s. And they dropped acid one time and it permanently damaged their brain. And now they don't understand the concept of money and how to eat with what. And just, you know what I'm saying? Different aspects of not being able to take care of themselves.
Right.
But in all that, I say all that to say, I really got to see what not
Can
being
easily
able,
take for granted.
not being able from birth, not having a choice, having to depend on somebody else for things that we do every day that we think nothing of.
Right.
Something as small as putting your shoes on or your pants on, or eating, or getting a drink of water, or going to the bathroom, or taking a shower. Things that we do without thought.
Right.
That if someone else could wake up and do tomorrow, it would literally bring them to tears. To be able to get up, open their eyes in the morning, and stand up out of bed onto their 2 feet.
Yeah.
And having that experience for that long, that early, it really gave me that perspective. And even more so than I already had it from my parents and everything else that I experienced before that, of just remaining in a space of gratitude in the fact that what you feel is small isn't small. What you
Mm-hmm.
feel is insignificant isn't insignificant. And we can so easily take things for granted, getting caught up in our day to day, whatever we got going on, that we forget just being able to get up in the morning on your own and get dressed is a blessing.
Yeah.
That's not something everybody gets to do every day.
Yeah.
And knowing that, living in that, it makes it that much easier to go to the gym, go to do things that people would typically complain about.
Mm-hmm.
I do with sincere joy because, like I said, I get to,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of people don't get to.
Yeah. Yeah. Wonderfully said, Rod. And I think it just a clear reminder that we all need to take a step back and count the blessings because they're
Yeah.
abundant for each and every one of us. And so,
For real.
and I think that's something that has to be like actively practiced. And I
Yeah.
think, like I said, I think it's really, really easy to go about life and
For,
it can't easily be morphed into your daily routine. It really, you have to be intentional about that.
no, for sure.
So, yeah.
And it's easy to be on the other side of that spectrum and be in that space of poor me, this happened, that happened. I can't believe why me. You know, like
Mm-hmm.
it's so easy to lean into that because
Mm-hmm.
that's what we're told to do. That's what's common practice to do. So, like you said, it's a very intentional thing you have to do to keep your head space in a space of gratitude, in a space of I get to, because the other side of that is dark
Yeah.
and leads to all of those other things that we see so many people deal with in today's time because they're not intentionally leaning into
Right.
or having the perspective of appreciating the small things
Right.
or the things that are considered to be small things. They're not small things, but we consider them small things. In doing that, like I said, it makes it so easy to complain, to be the victim, to not hold yourself accountable when you should.
Right.
And yeah.
Yeah. And gratitude is it's a feel good feel. And
Mm-hmm.
so if anything leads with gratitude or, just in that direction in general, it's going to lead to positivity. And so
Absolutely.
I like it. So where do you feel or where do you kind of see the Wurkhorse brand going or moving forward? Do you have any plans? Or we haven't talked about it yet, but I know you have your website and some merch out there.
Yeah, that I'm building with the mindset of slow and steady because I understand in my life's experience that anything that comes quick goes quick. So I'm not in a rush to get that to a certain spot at a certain time. I understand and know that in my build of my work, that'll happen on its own. And so as long as I continue to speak to that, as long as I continue to bring that with me, as long as I'm progressing, I'm growing, I'm working, that will,
Yeah.
because it's with me. And
Yeah.
so
It's
I
part of the
don't,
process.
exactly, as with the concept being what it is itself, the work does everything. It puts all of that other stuff on autopilot. All of that other stuff happens simultaneously when the work is at the forefront. And so
Yeah.
for me, right now, more than anything, it's about me being and performing to the best of my ability and putting myself in position to do so.
Yeah.
And so as long as that's done, all of the everything, the other moving parts, that all takes care of itself.
I like it. And so what's next for you, whether it's inside or outside the cage? What can people expect in the coming months?
January 24th, we are in Frisco with Peak. My home promotion. I fought for other promotions, but I fought for Peak by far the most. And yeah, we are in Frisco January 24th, for what will be my fourth professional fight. And yeah, I'm there and coming to present my best self. And I'm excited, but at the same time, I'm in love with the journey. I'm in love with the day to day. I'm in love with the slow steady grinding process because that's where it is and that's what it is. And I'm in no rush like for that day. You know what I mean? That day will come when it comes. My job is to make sure I'm at my best when that day comes. And me being at my best means me doing what I'm supposed to be doing right now.
Yep. One day at
With
a time.
the understanding also that that day, even though that day is planned, isn't promised.
Sure.
So I got to be rooted in today, in the now, and appreciative of all of that and working for that with that headspace.
I love it. Well, I'm excited.
Yeah.
And so I end every episode with two main questions. So, first question is, what's something you wish didn't have as much of a grip on you in your life?
Man, that I wish didn't have as much of a grip on me. My own criticism. I firmly know and believe I'm my biggest critic and don't give myself the grace that I should. And that plays in my favor sometimes, but in others it doesn't.
Sure.
And yeah, that's one area I could be better in is giving myself more grace, giving myself more, or not more, but less criticism, and just saying or being okay with where I'm at right now.
Sure.
And not being so hard on myself and you got to get better at this, you got to do this, you got to get this, you got to, you know what I mean? Because
Right.
as a man, it's so easy
Yeah.
to double down in that space.
Yeah. Well, and especially too with somebody like you who, you live, die, and breathe that workhorse mentality and having that dedication, discipline, and that drive, that I'm sure it is a little bit more challenging to have that self-compassion and just truly
Yeah.
being able to take a step back and
Yeah. And
be
sometimes
okay
just,
with that.
yeah, relax.
Yeah.
Because I'm a very intense person.
What?
Not always, but 80 to 90% of the time. Not intense in like a yelling, screaming,
Sure.
aggressive type of way, but intense in like just my seriousness to life. You know what I mean? And I have to step back from that sometimes and just
Yeah, for sure.
be
Well, on the flip side, then, what's something that you wish you had more of a grip on in your life?
more of a grip on. Hmm. Time. Time. Because that's a thing we don't get back. And like I said, as someone who is so many things, you can only be so many things in so many places at so many times. So at the same time that I'm on the mat and I'm training and I'm enjoying it and I'm loving it, I want to be with my daughter. Or I want to be with my wife, or vice versa. At the same time that I'm with my wife and I'm with my daughter, I want to be at the gym on the bag, and I want to be in the work. And those two things are simultaneous. And so obviously that's not something I could have more of a grip on. I don't have control over that component.
But it does seem like you've been really reflective over the last handful of years, if not decade, of the complexity that comes into having a good work-life balance and just being able to really take in that quality time, whether it be your training experiences and, athletic goals and experiences, as well as just embracing good quality time with your friends, with your family. Yeah. And so something that we can continue to all work towards and embrace.
Balance is what I like to call it. Balance.
Yeah.
Not being too far in one direction, because that's never good.
Yeah, for sure. Good. All righty. Well, for those listening and you're in the Frisco DFW area, or you just want to make a trip, come down to Frisco in January 24th. Come root on Rod. You can get tickets online. I'm sure as it gets closer to the fight, he'll be posting it.
Yeah, and I will have tickets in hand as well pretty soon, so you can contact me directly.
Perfect. And ways that people can do that are?
On my social media handles, Facebook is just Rob Moore. Instagram is Wurkhorse _145. And yeah, those are my two main handles, social media wise. And
Yep.
yeah, you can get at me there.
Yeah. And so anybody listening or watching, I'll have those linked down in the show notes. So if you want to follow along, check out his Instagram, his Facebook, or need a little bit of merch, get a shirt, get a hat, get a sweatshirt.
Millions.com, though, that link is and will always be on my handles as well. And I'll have from time to time dropped merch outside of that site that we'll release independently. So yeah. Always coming with something on that end too. And before we end, I really real quick just want to give you your flowers for this platform and what you're doing, giving people the opportunity to get to do this type of thing, to speak in this type of space. And knowing you, seeing you grow in your own life, your own journey has been a privilege as well. But I'm extremely proud of you, of Gavin, and what he's got going. Yeah, man, I that needed to be said.
Thank you.
I'm proud of both of you, and I'm extremely happy to call the both of you friends.
Well, I feel blessed, Rod, and not just to have all the guests that I've already had on so far and that are to come, but I really appreciate you taking the time to be on because this was really special to me. And I had no doubt that you were probably going to do me the favor, but it really is a blessing. And I was just excited to have you on and to dive a little bit deeper about what you've been doing because we've gotten to take a sideline seat and really watch you in your growth throughout this process. And it's really been amazing and inspirational as friends and just fans too, we can say.
Yeah.
And so keep up the good work. And we know you will. So
yeah, no, I can't thank you enough. Thank y'all enough for all y'all support over the years, buying tickets, buying merch, just showing up for me. You know what I mean? Like I always say, it's one thing to believe in yourself, but it's another thing when others believe in you. And I'm forever grateful for that.
Absolutely. Well, I stole something from you. I saw this blurb that you had put up on your website, so I'm actually going to read it because I just think people need to hear this.
Mhm.
So it says, if the question was posed, what is Wurkhorse? What does it mean? Simply put, it is a mindset, a lifestyle, a key component rooted in one thing, work. Work that does not seek attention or instant gratification, but seeks to make every space it exists in better. Work that provides for a family, work that makes relationships last, work that works under all circumstances and climates, work that works in the dark when everyone else is resting, work that works even when it is made a mockery of, laughed at, and misunderstood. Work that targets only one thing, results. Woo! So if that doesn't get our listeners fired up, I don't know what will. But for those listening or watching that feel like this brand captures and embodies you or motivates you in some way, shape, or form, get your butt up off the couch and go purchase some of Rod's Wurkhorse gear. It's a huge support to him, and it represents something bigger than us, right? It represents the work. And so I just thought that was beautifully said, and I wanted to share it. It needed to be out in the world. So
thank you so much.
Absolutely, Rod. It has been a true blessing. You got all the wonderful wisdom, and I can't wait to launch this episode. And it's going to be pretty darn close to when you're fighting. We'll be on the sidelines cheering you on. And so keep doing what you're doing.
As I will for you all.
Thank you, Rod.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to The Grip. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. You can also follow along on Instagram at The Grip Pod to stay up to date on new episodes. That way you can send over a DM if you've got a question you'd like to hear answered on our roll call series. Now remember, stay sharp, be grounded, and never lose your grip. See you next time.